these meetings. I told my wife, I says, we're moving to southern Utah. I'm never wearing long pants again.
Then you have days like today.
Yeah. Pretty much
today's
funerals,
not.
weddings, church and meetings. That's pretty much it. Huh? No, I've got regular Levi's on. Once I sit down, I roll the pant legs up on me. So.
Maybe like raise your hand when you make a motion and second it, because I'm not gonna be able to see your.
The left hand for I and right hand for me.
Where are we switching it? Oh, are you just switching over here now?
Let's make it confusing.
Yeah, 'cause I have to run the YouTube, I just turned it off.
You should just delete it.
So you want to do a 1 for yes and a 2 for no? Is that? Or just when it's any, those 4? Those against? Yes.
Just, it says I, that, you're trying to confuse me. But if it says I, that it's fine, if there's somebody against, then.
Okay, only if you're opposed, you have to raise your hand.
And
Okay.
then,
Additional uses.
or making the motion with seconding,
Okay.
because I can't, I don't remember the,
You don't recognize all the voices?
well, not if they're all mine.
Can't see our lips move.
All right.
Yeah.
You have 5 minutes left to keep giving us instructions.
Thank you.
Memorize it?
I have,
Okay. Just check.
but I took out the underdog part.
I don't want anybody.
We're gonna, I just wanna see how many kid parks we still have in the area. We kind of
I don't
moved
have a
from
good
our
enough
farming
memory.
community into a bedroom.
What are you remembering?
I was trying to memorize.
They still have torches though.
I can't even remember why I'm here.
Yes, do you want to turn outside the TV flat?
Do what?
It's kind of calm.
Which side do you need work?
That's what I would.
Do my, there you go.
So what is?
We got less people here today than we had last month.
We don't have any temps? Or alternates? Not anymore?
She left.
She what?
Just she's not, didn't quit?
Yeah, she's still.
She's still an alternate, she just isn't here?
Understand.
Hmm?
Commissioner, is it Commissioner Kelly?
Just on McGann, what?
But is it Commissioner Kelly
Yes.
during the meeting? Is that right?
Yes, Commissioner
Chairman.
Rigler.
Not Commissioner, Chairman. Oh, is it Chairman? Which one is it?
Or your highness, whichever one you want to, I'm good
Is
with
it Chairman
Dan.
or Commissioner?
It's,
Well, he's
it's
the chairman,
Commissioner.
But he's also commissioner. So
Commissioner
But
Chairman.
it's Chairman. That's what it should be.
Sure.
Okay.
I know it's.
Just call me Cece for
I'm just trying to learn.
Commissioner Chairman. What? What do you need?
Would you be okay with me sharing a couple of things before we do the public hearing? Just to set the stage and have them be less oppositional?
What are you trying to, well, I was going to address a few things, but
Well, I just
if you want to add in
I just want
after
to
I do.
understand what we do and what we don't do. If you're not going to do that, all our job is to,
Recommend to the city. council.
one, does it follow the regulations? Right?
Yeah,
How you
We don't
doing?
make decisions.
I was going to address it. Yeah, we make decisions. We recommend, make decisions to recommend or not
Based
recommend.
on,
Hey,
based on regulations.
We
can't, we don't have any subjectivity really, do we?
Good for her.
Yeah.
That's something we
So,
need to
if- yeah, if
understand.
you, I was going to address a
Trying to
couple
think if I've
things,
seen
and
her
if you
out.
want to address more.
I would like to say that, say a couple things as well, just from my personal
Well,
perspective.
Well, when we get down to the report,
Yeah.
I was going to do my little piece there.
Yeah.
And if I miss something, you
Jerry
want to add it,
Singleton?
jump right in there.
I still want to add a
Greg,
couple things just from my
Gary.
personal, that aren't,
Okay.
it won't
She
be
wants-
controversial or anything.
Unless you can call me names or something again, or
Wait, what do they call you?
blame,
last
I
time?
don't know, you just blame me for everything
I
that went
didn't even
wrong.
throw you under the bus.
You blame me for everything that went wrong in Tokerville for the last 5 years.
And for the water shortage. And for the lack of rain this year.
That's it.
It was your fault, we didn't get enough rain.
It's raining today.
What are our reservoirs at?
Yeah, but that's not my fault. That was-
I went out to Quell the other day. It's pretty full,
Is it?
actually.
Are the reservoirs doing okay this year?
Well, San Paulo,
Are the
is looking-
reservoirs
I mean,
doing okay? What's our snowpack in our water?
we're getting close. 2 more
We're
minutes.
low on that. I know.
Sure.
I just
Still
sent you
low.
an email.
It's the snowpack that's the issue, because even though it coils up now, they haven't been using it in summertime.
What?
It's
It's a public comment.
It's
for
the lack of
SRC.
snowpack. That's what's killed.
Okay. Is it different than these two that are sitting here?
Yeah, I just sent it to your email address.
You want to go ahead and read it in? I'll read these two in when we get to it, and you can read the other one, and then we'll open it up. Sound all right to you?
Sure. You're the boss.
They're being mean to me up here, Ruth.
Well, I can't tell, like, that's your.
I know, because you can't see their faces if they're really being mean or not.
I'm smiling at you.
Okay, let's go ahead.
Okay, hold on.
Okay, it is 6 PM on March 10th. Let's get our meeting started. I'd like to welcome everybody here today. It's nice to see this many citizens come out to our meetings. I'd like to see those in all our meetings, actually. We'll start off with the Pledge of Allegiance by Commissioner Gridley. If you,
Yeah, for me. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
okay. Okay, do we have any declarations or conflicts from any of the commission members for our agenda tonight? Nope. Okay, has everybody had the opportunity to review the minutes?
Yeah.
I think I only made the one change and you got that made, Ruth? Okay, can I have a motion for the minutes?
I'll make a motion to approve the minutes from last month's meetings.
I second the motion.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Okay, motion carries. And we're going to do our public forum, and I would like to make a couple comments before we start. One, I'd like to thank everybody on the commission and the staff for last month's meeting. I was ill and was unable to be here, and just commend them on the job well done from last month. It was a little bigger meeting than we were expecting it, where we didn't have the actual public hearing last month that we're having tonight. When we do our public forum, the one thing I would like to make clear is only one person speaks at a time. If you would come up to the mic, state your name. I'm not concerned about your house number, but I would like to know what part of Tokerville you live in so that we can see how that impacts on the items that we have tonight. For our initial public forum, that will be for the items that are not on the agenda. So if anybody would like to come up and take 3 minutes, limit your time to 3 minutes on any item that is not on tonight's agenda. Okay.
3 minutes.
Limited to 3 minutes, stuff.
Actually, the reason why, a couple of reasons why I'm here. One is to apologize, and Steph Olson, I was up on over, is to apologize for my raccoon face. I got burned pretty bad ice fishing, so real life happens. But last meeting, I would like to apologize for some of the disparaging comments that I made to this commission. And if I offended anybody, I want to apologize for that. Sometimes I'm a fighter and have been my whole life, and I fight for what I believe in, and I believe in Tokerville, so that's just me, but that's no excuse. So anyway, again, I apologize for anything that I said that hurt or offended anybody. And I know that this commission does the best that they can. I hope that all the decisions that we make should be based on what's good for the people of Tokerville and not based on, promises of money or background of money. So this is a special place, and I really believe in it. So again, thank you for all you do.
I appreciate it. And that kind of leads me into one additional thing that I would like to say. If you are going to bring up a specific of something that's stated to you or something that you're aware of that's been written, if you wouldn't mind saying in what context that was. Was it in a meeting where we could pull minutes from that meeting and go back and look at something, or where that statement's coming from specifically? I'm not sure if everybody knows quite how the Planning Commission works, and we don't usually go too in depth on this, but everybody sitting on the board is obviously residents of Tokerville. We do this on a voluntary basis. We're not compensated in any way. And each of us up here, I think, are all here for the reason that we care about Tokerville and we care about it now and in its future. This commission really makes recommendations to the city council. It is not a final deciding body. We will review things to make sure that they are in compliance with city ordinances, that they're in compliance, they take along the same path as a general plan, capital facilities plan, transportation plans. These members spend a lot of time reading the ordinances when we see a problem. We've spent an awful lot of time in the last year, I think, going through and trying to correct errors in the ordinances and getting any conflicts between ordinances cleared up. So I hope you can appreciate that these people do a lot of hard work. They donate a lot of their personal time, not only for the meetings here, but of their own time researching items. So we'll move into the reports. Got a couple items that have come up from the city council. One, I voiced my concerns on some of the MPDO, which we're going to be speaking about tonight, not a specific MPDO, but the ordinance itself. We'll get into the details in the discussion, and when we get to that item on the agenda. There was one thing brought up in the city council meeting that Rocky Mountain Power says there may be some rolling brownouts this summer because of their infrastructure. I don't know if Mayor, you guys are going to go further into that at all. Okay. So just the comments, and our concern is always, as everybody else in the city of Tokerville, I think, about the concerns about water is always growing too big in the type of building that is coming here, commercial and residential. So that is always our concerns. And we hope we represent the city and our citizens well. So do we have any reports from any of the commissioners or any further statements?
I'd like to say last week or last month when we had our public hearing, I sure hated the fact that one, we're elevated because it puts us at odds, and two, that we're sitting apart from each other because all of us here are just, we were where you are. Last year I decided to volunteer because I really wanted to have understanding of the water rights and the growth that's happening, and I think we're all just as concerned as everybody else. So I don't like this at all. I'm excited to find out where we can get money for our decisions. I'm trying to find an edge. I haven't found it yet. I'm not really excited. None of us even are interested in that. I guess I just wanted you guys to know we're all like Chairman, Dan.
Yeah, go with Dan.
Chairman Dan, like you said, I think we're all in the same boat, wanting to be wise and grow and keep originally to the roots of what Tokerville, why we came here in the first place. So that's why we're here. And I just didn't even have enough information to stand up and have an opinion. And that's one thing I think we could do better as a city. I wish we understood the water situation better. I wish we understood the MPDO. I didn't even know what that meant for the first 6 months coming to these meetings. I kept having to do a lot of research. Maybe we could be better at giving the public more information so that when they are frustrated, they understand why in some ways our hands are tied as a commission.
And while we've got this big group here, I would also like to state that we do have an opening on the planning commission for an additional alternate. We're short. So if anybody is interested in joining us, please get your name to the mayor. Okay. Anyone else? Any of the commissioners? Mr. Versamak.
I don't believe I have anything for the commission.
Okay. Oh, representing the council, Mayor. Okay. All right, we'll now go into our public hearing. Again, these are for the specific items. We'll take if you have a comment, please come up, state your name, the location in the area of the city you live, and limit your comments to 3 minutes. Our first public input is sought on the zone change for the application submitted by Bryant 30 LLC for tax ID parcel 3126 T3126. The current zoning is M1 light industrial. The proposed zoning change is highway commercial. Do we have anybody here from Bryant LLC? If you wouldn't mind coming up and kind of explain to us what you're doing, where the area in, I know it's not the Browse exit, so people don't know where the tax ID, I'm sure where exactly that is. Just give us a little background on it.
Okay, first of all, my name's Coy Bryant, and my older brother's here, Mark, as well, and then our other partners with me. We do have roots in Tocqueville. My great-grandparents' house is the blue house on your left that's for sale, and my family owns property up on Smith's Mesa, and so my great-great-grandfather's buried in the Tocqueville Cemetery. So that being said, we understand what the culture of Tocqueville is and what most people want it to stay the way it is. So the property that we're talking about is off the Browse exit. We're looking at putting in a recreational vehicle park, short-term stays. And in addition, we want to make that kind of a Western themed to where people with horses can take their horses out and put them in a corral instead of leaving them in their trailers overnight. When they come down for rodeos, they can bunk next to their horses and take care of their own horses. But that's kind of, and initially we're looking only at 50 RV pads. Primarily, we have water rights with the property, and we understand that there's a limitation on that as well. So,
Where, when you say the Browse exit, where, if you're going northbound and take Browse off, where exactly are we
if you
talking?
take the northbound exit, if you're heading north and you take exit 30, when you come off the exit, the stop sign, you turn right, and there's a little crossover road to Old Highway 91. And essentially you're driving right into the property, but there's not an entry right there. So and so the map's on the screen there. And so pretty much everything south is state trust lands. Everything to the east is state school trust lands. And there's a private parcel just to the north of us of 50 acres that was purchased. And we've talked to them, and they're not quite sure what their plans are for that property. But that is actually county property, not in Tocqueville itself.
Yep. All right. Well, I'll go through the staff comments on this. Discussion is the applicant's requesting a zone change from M1 light industrial to highway commercial in order to accommodate an RV and recreational vehicle park. The property consists of approximately 23.89 acres. There are currently, I assume that's no services available to this property. The applicant will need to provide envelopes and mailing labels, and the site plan needs to conform to the requirements of Chapter 10(6) of the Land Management Code. The application was reviewed at staff meeting on February 24th, 2021, and the comments were as follows. There is no sewer in that area. There is no culinary water in that area. There is no power in the area, but availability is unknown. The property was rezoned from MU20 to MU1 to accommodate a storage unit, RV storage lot, some time ago. The project never materialized. The new owner would like to rezone the property from M1 to highway commercial to accommodate an RV park. The application has been deemed complete. The Planning Commission shall conduct a public hearing on this application, and after said hearing, shall conduct a finding of fact on this application. The standards for review: does the applicant address a recognized and demonstrated need in the community? Will the application be compatible with the character of the neighborhood and surrounding structures in use, scale, mass, and circulation? Will the application result in an over-intensive use of the land or excessive depletion of natural resources? Will the application have a material adverse effect on community capital improvement programs? Will the application require a level of community facilities and services greater than that which is available? Will the application result in unique traffic congestion and traffic hazards? Will the application cause significant air, odor, water, light, or noise pollution? Will the application otherwise be detrimental to the health, safety, and welfare of the present or future inhabitants of the city? Does the application meet the requirements of the general plan? According to this section 10.8.3b, no zone district amendment shall be approved unless the planning commission finds that the amendment meets the above listed standards and conditions. So would now like to open that up to the public for any public comment. And if we have no comment from the review,
I'm just thinking about how
Oh,
that would affect.
can you come up to the microphone, please? State your name and the area of Tocqueville you live, please.
My name's Vicki Nelson and I live on Peachtree Drive. And I'm just concerned because we have so much traffic from Tocqueville Falls, and it kind of seems like that might be something that is geared towards that. I don't know.
If you'd like, yes.
So it's kind of unique in the fact that it's right off the freeway and it's the northernmost part of Tocqueville. And we don't anticipate an increase in your traffic in your city because everybody's going to get off and get back on once they're done with their stay. The increase in traffic would be nothing more than if they're gone the way designed like every other tourist around. And so I don't think that it should cause any strain. Additionally, we do have a plan. We've hired Alpha Engineering to work on the commercial septic system and also getting public water available with the water rights that we have. So other than that, I don't see it affecting the old part, the historic part of Tocqueville much, if any at all, especially once the bypass road is completed. So.
Chair Fountain, for clarification, this is just for zone change. A
Right.
business license will be a completely separate discussion, correct?
Correct.
Okay, I just want to make that clear.
Also, I want to point out, we're not planning on doing a traditional RV park where we clear several acres of property and have one RV right next to the other. We want them to have semi-privacy. Ultimately, we have almost 24 acres. KOA standard is 10 pads per acre, and we're putting in 50 on 24 acres almost. And so we intend to spread them out so that they have some privacy and some uniqueness, and that's the draw that we hope to bring instead of the traditional RV parks.
And just as Commissioner Griggle stated, this is not to deal with what you're going to do yet. This is strictly on the zone change to highway commercial. So we're probably going to have pretty much the same conversation when it comes down once we look at the drawings themselves. Okay. Any other comments from the public? Anything from the commissioners where they would see a conflict and with any of the areas as described with the general plan?
You know that in the business item. We'll address that in the business item.
All right. Our next public hearing. This would be item number 2 under the public hearings. Public input is sought on the preliminary plat application submitted by SRC Land Holdings LLC for a 90 residential lot subdivision within 4 phases, tax ID T31 11-341, zoning is R112. Do we have somebody here from SRC Land Holdings?
Can I ask,
You were pretty quick there.
Did you see how fast I sat down when you said, is there anybody from whatever here?
Point of clarification is it was zoned as R120, and in some of the older records it says R120. When did it change to R112?
Well, and that's part of what we're going to get into on this when we get down into the items itself.
Okay.
Okay.
Hello, I'm Scott McCall with SRC Land Holdings. We're proposing a 4-phase 97 lot preliminary plat The preliminary plat itself is inside the tax parcel at the upper right corner. The other parcels it must touch on a little bit, but the preliminary plat itself is in that parcel. So it's along the west boundary, the east boundary and the north boundary of that can area. We're proposing, so far, the lots are going to be 12,000 square feet of usable property, and there'll be some additional property that's in retaining walls on the back, and they'll probably be benched because it's a 8% slope property, so we'll probably have streets that bench on the way up. But otherwise, it's going to be very conventional stuff that we've all seen. We're proposing to have a small association, so we'll have some common landscaping, so we're hoping that'll distinguish it from maybe your average family size lots. But other than that, it's fairly ordinary.
All right.
Very interested in any questions anybody might have. We'll take notes and we'll answer them all.
Okay. And anybody from the public, again, state your name and the location of Tocqueville you live, and limit your comments to 3 minutes.
Here. Anita Eaton, South Ash Creek Drive, but not South Ash Creek Drive, to be up in the Heights area, because there's a long Ash Creek Drive. The map that was submitted for the preliminary plat, phases 1 through 4, looking at it, the phase number 3 has been cut off partially. But if you follow around all of the lots that are listed there, a couple of concerns that I have is, one, the preliminary plat is not 90 acres in size. Preliminary plat specifically states up to lot number 137, which that is a conflict. The second one, in taking the road off of Mesa View, and this is referring to the plat, this is a sloped area of ground. I'm not sure how big of or where the water is supposed to go when and if it ever rains in Tocqueville. But at the end of that corner, the only likely place for that water to run, and I realize there might be a box there, but that would be across property that falls below it. The other item that I have that I brought that I was thinking of was that is about the zoning. At the time that this property was changed from MU20, which is what it originally had been, to R120, which is what it is currently, it was all ownership with a number of property owners, and it has typically been called the Westbrook property, and I'm putting that in double quotes because I know Doug Westbrook is not the only party who owned property out there, but he was the only one that consistently showed up at all of the meetings with the city. But my understanding, especially when I was on the Planning Commission, one of the reasons that for the bypass road going in and being gifted for that center section was so that these parcels of ground that are out there would have access, because it really is pretty much a landlocked piece of property. And in that, the roof count was given based on R120. This property has not gone through a zone change to take it to R112, which are quarter-acre lots. It is R120, and they did a roof count of 3,000 and some odd. Don't have the development agreement in front of me to read, nor am I on the Planning Commission. Therefore, this is why I'm here. But those are my concerns about this. The plat map is incorrect. It is not 90 lots in size. It is 137 lots in size. The drainage, and I know that this is only a preliminary plat, but the drainage just on that initial location would drain across other property, potentially. And then the other item is that this is being submitted under R112, which this property is not R112. And I would hope that this Planning Commission would reject it solely on the part that it is not complete.
Any other public comment?
My name is Bruce McKay. I live on Mulberry. So we'll have new backdoor neighbors if this comes to fruition. And more of mine are just kind of concerns or questions. One of them is the drainage, because we've got so if you look at the plat with the 90 homes on it, we're like the southernmost last one where our house can be built. And it's, I don't know what the grade is, but it's, 15% or something going up. So just wherever that's all going to come, I don't want to kind of come across our property because we happen to be the lowest one on the, west side of Mulberry, down at the south end of Mulberry. We spend a lot of money trying to develop our backyard. Don't want anything kind of washing it out. I'd rather, if we're going to put in a swimming pool, I'd rather have it be a conscious effort. Second, one is just, I guess, trying to understand what the separation would be from the west side of our property line to the east side of our backdoor neighbor's property, should again this come to fruition. Is there, I understand somebody had said, and of course, it's one of those 17th hand, is there a 10-foot easement? Is there going to be a retaining wall that separates this subdivision from Almond Heights, kind of going along the cattle fences kind of along our side now? Sorry, I'm not even Italian and I still move my hands. So those are kind of our biggest concerns. There's one that's more of a general concern with the development is when I look at, I guess everybody's question is, where is water coming from? Because even when you look at the 2019 Tocqueville Water Conservation Plan, it shows even out of 2050, a population of 4,178 people and ERCs, which I assume is sort of like meters, people tied in, 1,552, and we're already at 700 or thereabouts. So it's like if 3,000 houses eventually going to go into this area, that's sort of somebody's underscoping from a water standpoint at least, and the whole population standpoint as well. So those are just kind of concerns. I think, granted, everybody west of the Mississippi is probably concerned with water, so it is a pretty big concern here of wondering where it's going to come from. Because if Rocky Mountain is going to do rolling brownouts, are we going to have, water rationing through the summer? Because I doubt if we're going to get a whole lot more rain than we seem to be getting. I know the last 2 years pretty dry. So anyway, thank you.
Hello, thank you for having me. Kelly Schroeder. My family, we live at 175 Sunset. And if you look on the map, which I can barely see, we're parcel number 144C. We're just below Mesa. So Mr. McCall's been to our house and explained he's going to put a really nice 6-foot cinder block fence behind my house. We're the ones with donkeys. So, yeah. Donkeys and goats. When it gets to be about feeding time, they get kind of ornery and noisy. Go back to the analogy of, let's move next to an airport. The property's reasonable. We don't mind it. Within a year or two, you're complaining or they're complaining about living there. And then my backyard's going to have 3 homes, 3 backyards butted up to my property alone. Whether with malice or innocent, I got a feeling I'm going to have kids and adults over there throwing food, feed, doing whatever they can to upset those animals. And they're on a pretty strict diet. So coupled with that, I would like to suggest that in lieu of having 3 homes behind my house, I'm not trying to stop growth. I like a lot of people have said here, I want it to be managed. Financially, and as a community, it's the best, it's the most healthiest for everyone. Sales tax is great. Let's bring in businesses that brings that in. Don't put the sales tax, don't put taxes on the citizens because we don't have that coming in. I'm all for growth. But what I would like to see behind my house in particular, and I'm affected by it like 6 other properties, is as opposed to 3 homes behind me, how about a green belt? How about then start the road? So I would get behind me 3-foot green belt, 24-foot 2-lane road, then start the homes. That way people are less inclined to screw with the animals. And I'm not the only one that's got property there. I also have kids that go to the bus stop on Westfield. We've been there for the last 2 years watching contractors, construction trucks, residents probably too, speeding, not stopping for buses. Kids are playing in the street waiting for the bus. If you go by that alone before the bypass is put in, Grassy Lane, as well as Mesa, those initial 27 homes with 2 people per home probably will be driving through that area when the buses are picking up and dropping off. There's no other way for those homes to exit. There's no other way for emergency vehicles to get in there. If you don't have that bypass in first and have those roads connected so the contractors, business people, residents can get out. We moved here because of now my wife has her animals in the backyard. She can have her coffee. Before we had to drive 30 miles one way just to go visit the animals. I'm not against the growth. I just want it to be managed properly and responsible. Thank you.
Joel Jepson on Westfield. My concern is the traffic that would be generated prior to the bypass road. We anticipate the bypass road. We have lived in anticipation of it for some time now. We have watched the traffic on Westfield, which all has to go past our place, 24 hours a day. And I've got some concerns with that. One of the concerns is an accident that occurred last summer, towards the end of the summer. We'd had a campaign going on Facebook where we were discussing the traffic and the way that the kids and residents were not observing speed limits and not even knowing what speed limits are. On the morning of the 26th, at 5:40 in the morning, I heard a car coming around the corner, heard it very clearly. It could not have stayed in its lane with the amount of rubber that was being laid on the tire on a very dangerous corner. Again, it was 5:40 in the morning. It was, 5:50 something that emergency was called because of the accident that occurred coming out of the switchbacks. I know it had to have been the same car. No, I didn't see it, but I knew that it had to have been the same car. If that accident had occurred on Tokerville or on Westfield, it would have been a little bit different story because everybody in Westfield would have then been locked in while they were cleaning that accident up. Yes, that's a one-time incident. I would say that with the traffic that we've incurred as recently as the first wonderful day of summer, or summer-like weather here in spring break, traffic Saturday was just incredible up and down that street. I've since come up with a way to sit in my backyard unobserved and be able to mark traffic going between two fence posts in front of my house or two light poles. And the average traffic on a Sunday afternoon, when I was sitting there watching it, was 40 miles an hour in front of my house. There were a good number of cars that were going faster than that, and that's on a Sunday afternoon. The other thing that I've got as far as concern in traffic is the intersection. When you come up on the road, up on the boulevard, I have to, in my car, going up to that, to get onto that boulevard, I have to pull a full car length past this painted stop line before I can see traffic well enough coming from the direction in which the accident occurred. I have to pull my car up if I'm turning west to head towards I-15. I find that, is that my 3 minutes? Okay. Anyway, it's a very unsafe circumstance, very unsafe circumstance. My wife and those people that, and as we said, coming from bus stops, the buses that are there in the morning, the amount of kids that are out there, the cars that are revving their way through the bus stop, the amount of noise, everything that's going on, that's just, that intersection is tremendously dangerous because of that situation.
Appreciate your comments. Thank you. Anyone else?
Stacy Eaton, Ash Creek Drive. A couple of things that I have a question on. I think it says peace, or if it's not, it's very close to it. In the development agreement, Westbrook had to plat a parcel of land to keep his development agreement going in a certain amount of time. And there used to be a church plotted on, I think it's this piece. If not, it's very, very close to it. So I want to know if it is on this piece. If it's not, then where is this church? Because that's what kept this development agreement alive. If they're not doing that, then in theory, this development agreement should just go away. The other concern I have is on this plat here, it shows their address as Sun River. Now, I guess I should have started. I am pro growth. I am pro, if you own the land, you ought to be able to develop it. But I do think it should be done correct, through all of the correct steps. So my concern is, if this is a Sun River project, which I don't care if it is or not, but is our city attorney representing Sun River and the city? That seems like a huge conflict of interest that I think the city needs to address quickly, because I've seen Heath, and I wish he was here, I've seen him in Leeds representing two sides, and it did not turn out very well. So those are my two concerns here.
Thank you.
Hi, Amy Erickson, 283 Sunset. I did not find a turtle on the land. I wish I had. Our main concern is all of it. Kind of against the whole project. There's already excavators up there clearing land and making room for whatever, so it being a proposed project is kind of interesting. Dust control is a big thing. We drove past there while they were up there just this last couple days, and there's not a water truck. They're already moving dirt. Concern about the safety of protecting the open dig, and I do some insurance inspecting, and you'd be surprised what kind of holes there are in the ground that are not protected. Little kids or neighbors walking around playing. Noise ordinances, when they start to really dig, we can hear them already. What are the hours? Are they different for construction equipment? Machinery left on the site, what kind of security will there be for that so that no one can mess with them and play on them? We want to make sure that the zoning doesn't change outside of that boundary, because we are, I believe, we are in multi-use at the top of the hill, and I want to make sure that doesn't change without, you know, finding out or being able to oppose that. Is there going to be a good SWEP permit in place, because they'll be going in and out of that dirt road off of Sunset on Mesa, so all of that dirt and mud's going to come right down on the road. So who's going to keep that cleaned up and make sure that it doesn't, you know, the water's running down their project as well as our road. And the exit, as they mentioned, there's only one, so where's it going to keep going out? Is it going to meet with the bypass, or are they doing that first? And do they have an estimated completion time? How long is this first phase going to go on? And the number of houses, is that just phase one, or is that all 4 phases is the 90 homes? Would be another question. And I think that's all I have. Thank you.
Hey, Jerry Moser at the top end, the west end of Sunset. And like my neighbor stated, I've got a lot of horses up there. And horses are great and everything, but people that move in, they're already there. We've been there for 17 years, living a great life. And I've got some real expensive horses. I'd appreciate it if they weren't messed with by neighbors as well. That boundary fence to the south of me is going to be a big deal to me. And I would also appreciate something like a green belt buffer between me and them, because it really changes my liability to have I've got a long length of property there, and I could end up with 10 backyards right up against my horses. And that's it. I'm just concerned for my horses, and then the risk and the liability that increases for me, because people don't understand. They're not dogs. Thank you.
Anyone else?
DC Young on South Westfield. I have ability to confirm that there was in fact a church property allocated in this area where this planning thing was going in, and that was located, I believe it was going to be directly south of the Mesa, what they call it, Mesa Street. In that area there, it's supposed to be 5 or 6 acres. I know that for a fact, right? The other thing I'm concerned about, I echo the issue of the drainage. You know what happens when too much water starts running past a single piece of property. I'm concerned about the fact that I didn't see any egress or exit onto Route 17, the new proposed route bypass from this subdivision in the plots there. And I was under the understanding that until we got a secondary entrance in here, we were not going to allow any more subdivision development. I fully expect the city council to uphold that rule. In other words, if there's not a second exit, this should never be approved. So I'm looking for that, and I don't know whether I should bring it up here to the city council. I was noticing in your zoning map several errors that I'd like to point out. One of them is Toker Boulevard is called Tokerville Boulevard. SR 9 is designated as the roads going south out of Tokerville, and until it gets to Laverton, I believe it's still SR 17. And I'm always curious, is it Westfield, 2 words, or is it Westfield, 1 word? I've been told by the post office it's Westfield, 1 word. So I'll give this to the mayor and let him decide what to do with it. And thank you very much.
Thank you. Do we have anyone else? And I guess if you want to say anything else, that's you. Okay.
Well, first, we know that we're not going to be able to make everybody happy. And we're sorry, in a sense, to bring a big project into a town that's not used to the big projects and wants to preserve their way of life, the way that they've been used to for years, and they moved here for that, or they grew up here with that. We do think one of the big things that we are bringing with our projects is the bypass road, and it will be this project, this overall master plan project will ultimately preserve all the things that you love about Tokerville. We are going to be building some neighborhoods and open land around your neighborhoods along our boundaries, but vast majority of Tokerville, just because of the bypass road and taking the traffic off of that road, is going to have a tremendous positive effect on the current town of Tokerville. Going down the list, started with the stormwater. The engineers will take care of the stormwater. They have to follow, do a drainage plan, hydrological study. They will route the water in a safe way. They'll put it into historical drainages, and it will absolutely not be flooding anybody's yards. They know how to do this. They do it all the time, and they're professionals. that is something we can totally mitigate. There were questions about the zoning and the lot size. According to the development agreement, we are allowed clustering, and we are entitled to 2 units per acre gross. So that's why it's not a R120 in a conventional sense. The development agreement trumps that. The separation from the existing neighborhoods, gosh, I mean, it's a lot of property to put any kind of strip in between the existing neighbors and new development. We fully believe that we can do really nice lots and be good neighbors. You'll have great future neighbors. I know the construction process is very difficult and disruptive, but I've done it for 20 years at Sun River next to very picky people, and we're really good at listening to people and taking care of their needs. It's something we're just really good at, and we've done all sorts of very heavy construction next to existing residences. Kelly, your donkeys, I know we're going to have to work on where they are. And totally, you've got my number. We'll be in touch for that sort of thing. With the horses, we do the same thing. And we propose to construct right up to your property lines, our shared property lines. But we feel like we can mitigate any concerns with the grass. We know that it's an extra touch, and we completely do that. Traffic concerns. So we had a traffic study done recently and sent that into the city. It just came in a couple of days ago, so I don't know if there's been an opportunity to digest it. But it does say that the traffic is very, very low on Westfield currently, and came in as a level of service A and B, which are very high performing streets. I know it might seem like a lot of traffic, and probably is a lot of traffic for Tokerville, but they took actual numbers of actual traffic, and this is a data-driven report, and it has a lot of capacity to spare. The fire emergency issue is something that we think we can resolve by the time we would be building vertically. We could have an emergency route that would go all the way around, and we talked about that briefly in a planning staff meeting that we had a few months ago. So there are ways to do that. We would put that in place. Okay, let's see. Oh, one of the keys is the timing of this phase construction and the timing of the bypass road construction. So we are well on track for the bypass road design to be done this spring. We anticipate starting this summer. And we have been told that it'll be 8 to 10 months construction period. So that would be finishing next May of 2022. Maybe June, maybe July if you wanted to pad that a little extra. This project, we would like to start grading this summer also. We think this phase, these lots would be done a little before the bypass road would be complete. This is really important we need to start generating some cash flow and getting something working to keep this whole enterprise going. It's really expensive. And we feel like this would be a very small overlap of development, and we can put a ceiling on it, like 50 COs or something like that. Not the whole 100 or whatever the number ends up being, but we feel like there's a compromise there that could keep us going and establish some cash flow while we wait for the bypass road to complete. And if the bypass road was delayed further, no more COs. But we just want some. The church, I have seen that on some sketches. It's not in our development agreement at all. We're going to have lots of churches out there, but that's not the place we're planning to have one right now. But there'll be churches in every neighborhood, and that's usually a demand, depending on how many churchgoers there are. Minor road improvement. Oh, the earthwork that has been done on the site right now. I wouldn't even call it earthwork. It has been driving the taking the tractor out there to smooth a path along the future bypass road. It's mostly to show people and just to kind of demonstrate the location of it and to make an easier way of driving through that area. There's been no earthwork. There's no grading and pushing of cuts and fills. It's just a little clearing. It's really probably a little more accurate way to put that. Hours of operation and noise, every city has standards for that, and I know you guys do. So we would be held to certain hours of operation, certain days, and there's noise levels. There would be a SWIP in place. That's a federal requirement, not even a local requirement. And they are so on you. You can't get away with leaving a dirty street these days. So you could feel pretty confident that those things will be watched very closely. That is the bulk of what I have right now. But I don't know why that's not accurate. The version I have is consecutive around 100 miles. And if there was an issue with needing to stick with 97, because the previous we did use that at 97. So that's something we could discuss with staff probably.
We're at tonight is for 90. 100 is not 90.
And
101 is not 90.
if that's an issue,
147 is
Oh,
not.
okay.
we can accommodate that. Back to you.
Okay. Do we have any other public comments before we move into the business items? Please come up to the mic.
Oh, my name is Corey Turner. I'm up 728 Westfield. I bought the Everts last October, and like most, I'm not. I've moved from the big city. I moved from Vegas. I know about growth. It's inevitable. It's going to happen. But like Kelly said, I think it should be managed properly. And a lot of these people's concern isn't necessarily Westfield Boulevard. Well, it is in and out with traffic and construction and whatnot, but also in and out of Tocqueville Boulevard. I think if this thing moves forward, I think there should be an agreement between us, the people of Tocqueville and Sun River, that if if you are, up to putting an emergency road in for, say, emergency vehicles just in case, then maybe we use this road also for construction traffic, so our kids aren't, in the way of all these people coming in. Because I worked construction for 10 years, and I know there's a lot of heavy equipment. Kids get curious, things like that. Where are all these big trucks going? Then they go up and they start playing on the area. That's kind of hard to mitigate. Sorry, I lost my train of thought. Is also have an agreement with us, these citizens of Tocqueville, that if this bypass road falls through or something else, that you stop building, because it is a safety risk. I'm also in the fire department, and one road in with all of these people is very unsafe, because if something happens, somebody panics and that road gets blocked, and we have a fire like we did last month, the house up there caught on fire, and it starts spreading, then we're all stuck. Then we're jumping across ravines. And I think that with all of us here, we can come to an agreement that if this isn't done, if this access road for you to bring in your equipment isn't built, or this bypass road gets shut down, then you stop building. And then you're just going to have to take that loss, and or we find a way to revamp this, the bypass. That's all I got. Thank you.
All right. Comments, 2 emails that were comments that came in. One's from Deborah Adam. It states, I'd like to voice my concerns on the 90 home development plan just west of Westfield Road on Mulberry Road and Mulberry Road. I'm worried we're only have one road out in case of an emergency, Westfield Road. If the developers come in and build more homes before a second fire access option is available, I'm very concerned that we won't be able to evacuate in an emergency. And she's lives on Westfield Road. From Alan Keller, also on Westfield Road. Can you clarify why the application it was for R112 zoning when the zoning map on the Tokerville website shows this as R120. Second is how many houses are allowed by the fire marshal for one access road? And how many houses exist south of the Ash Creek Bridge? And you had one also, Joey?
Yes, I have one from Shelley Singleton. It says, my name is Shelley Singleton and I live on Mount Charm Road and have for 25 years. I love this area and I'm saddened that it might be subject to uncontrolled growth. Growth is inevitable and accepted, but we need to keep it slow, controlled, and with purpose to improve our community. I have heard that the proposed Sun River development may be approved to proceed without the necessary access road on the west side of the ridge, the bypass road. I'm hoping that you are considering the residents and that many of us are opposed to using Westfield Road as access. Please deny the developers access to put any more traffic on this road. We also should post a few more 25-mile-an-hour signs on Westfield Road so that it does not feel like a highway when it is a residential road. Thanks, Shelley.
Okay. Any further comments before we move into our business items? All right. That'll close the public hearing part of our agenda. We'll now move into the business items. The first being the annual renewal of a livestock conditional use permit for the keeping of chickens and ducks located at 124 North Ash Creek Drive. The applicant is Lane and Renee Garner. This was initially issued on April 17th of 2013. And there has been, there's no business license requirement for this, and there's been no complaints on this permit. Any commissioners have any comments, or I'll entertain a motion on this one?
I'll make a motion to approve business item F1. Renew.
Do we have a second?
I'll second.
Any opposed? All for it?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, that will pass. Item number 2 is the annual renewal of a livestock conditional use permit for the keeping of one goose located at 1502 South Choya Drive. The applicant is Dan and Melissa James. And this one originally was issued on April 15th of 2020. And it does not require a business license, and there has been no complaints apparently about this goose.
Does anyone have a personal firsthand experience with said goose?
Not with this one, but these are meaner than any other animal I've ever met. But
Is that the reason why they're not just allowed based on?
no. Greg, would you want to,
It's just the,
the ordinance? Yep.
it's just the way.
Yes, it is an ordinance, animal covered in the
And the
animal
one that
ordinance.
was in effect when they got the permit.
Is it currently still in effect? The exclusion of geese for?
Yeah.
Unless allowed?
I don't believe it is.
It's a residential area. Keep livestock is not.
You did this one. I think it was still on that.
Yeah, it's a point system on the animal control
Yeah.
ordinance, but this would have been issued under the old ordinance, so it'd be still held to that.
Do we have any other comments from commissioners? Okay. Do I have a motion on this one?
Motion to renew business item F2.
Do we have a second?
I second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, motion carries. Item number 3 is the annual renewal of a home occupation permit for a home office located at 1276 South Rainbow Bridge Street. The applicant is Michael Backus. This was initially done on April 18th of 2018. Currently, Mr. Backus has not renewed his business license, so it's not current, and there is no complaints on this business. Any discussions from the commission?
Is there any staff comments specifically besides those?
No, just that they have not renewed their business license and there are no complaints.
Is there a reason he's seeking a renewal for this if he hasn't renewed his business license? What's the difference?
Well, he's,
It just automatically comes up. Has anyone spoken with him to see if there's even a need or a desire?
Send a certified letter at the end of the year for all of them.
and that we did, there was a discussion at the city council meeting, correct? That about business licenses, and after they expire, that there will be a late fee. And after they exceed a certain amount, they will have to start over from the beginning. So if we were going to make a motion on this one, it would be, yeah. So if we have anybody that would like to make a motion.
I'll make a motion that we approve or recommend approval for renewal of home occupation permit contingent upon him obtaining a valid business license.
Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, we'll put that forward to the city council. All right, item number 4, annual renewal of livestock conditional use permit for the keeping of 10 chickens located at 1520 South Kane Circle. The applicant is David Masal. Hopefully I pronounced that correctly. The original permit was issued on April 18th of 2018. There is no requirement for a business license and there's been no complaints. Any comments on this? Do we have a motion?
I'll motion to renew item F4.
Approve the renewal. Do we have a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, motion carries. Item 5, the annual renewal of livestock conditional use permit for the keeping of, oh, we just did that one, didn't we?
No.
No, we didn't. It's another chicken one. The annual renewal of livestock conditional use permit for the keeping of chickens located at 112 North Ash Creek Drive. The applicant is Steve Thayer. And the original on this was April 21st of 2010. And there's no business license required, and there's been no complaints on this conditional use permit.
Is there a number of chickens named in the original? It's just an unknown number. Under our new statutes, should we add a number to that?
It's all.
It's actually already in the ordinance.
It's already covered based on.
Okay, the holder shall dedicate no less than 500 square feet of ground to the keeping of the chickens. The permit holder shall dedicate no less than 25 square feet of ground for each chicken kept.
What's the date of that?
That's on April 21st, 2010. Any comments from commissioners? Do we have a motion?
Make a motion to approve item number 5, F5.
Do we have a second?
I'll second it.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? The motion carries. Item number 6, annual renewal of a conditional use permit for an automotive repair shop located at 40 West Berry Lane. The applicant is Ned Snow. The original permit was issued on April 16th, 2008. Mr. Snow has not renewed his business license as of yet, and there has been no complaints on this permit. Any comments? Do we have a motion?
I'll make a motion to approve the renewal of the conditional use permits as long as the business license is renewed in the proper amount of time.
I'll second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, the motion carries. Item 7, annual renewal of the conditional use permit for a bed and breakfast located at 1015 South Mulberry Drive. The applicant is James and Deborah Valentine. This permit was issued originally on April 14th of 2016. They do have a current business license and there's been no complaints. Any comments from commissioners? Do we have a motion?
A motion to approve renewal of item F7.
Do we have a second?
I second.
Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, the motion carries. Item 8, discussion and possible recommendation on zone change application submitted by Bryant 30 LLC for tax ID parcel T3126. Current zoning is M1 light industrial. Proposed zoning is HC highway commercial. I think I already read the staff comments on that previously, but we'll go through it again.
Mr. Chairman?
Yep.
I make a note that planning commission should remember their finding of fact now that the public hearing has been had. So each one of the items, the review items should be discussed.
Okay.
Line by line.
As per the ones listed on the staff comments, is that what?
Yes, 1 through 9.
Yeah, that's what I was going to go through those again. So. Okay, to go through again, the applicant is requesting a zone change from M1 light industrial to highway commercial in order to accommodate an RV or recreational vehicle park. The property consists of approximately 23.89 acres. There are currently no services available to this property. The applicant will need to provide envelopes and mailing labels, and the site plan needs to conform to requirements of Chapter 10-6 of the Land Management Code. The application was reviewed at staff meeting on February 24th, 2021, and comments were as follows. There is no sewer in the area. There is no culinary water in the area. There is power in the area, but the availability is unknown. The property was rezoned from MU20 to M1 to accommodate a storage unit, RV storage lot some time ago. The project never materialized. The new owner would like to rezone the property from M1 highway commercial to accommodate the RV park. The application has been deemed as complete. The planning commission shall conduct a public hearing on this application, and after said hearing shall conduct a finding of fact on this application. As to the finding of fact, does the application address a recognized and demonstrated need in the community? Does anyone feel that it does or does not?
Meet the needs?
Yes, meet a need for the community. I think we're more.
There's a need for some commercial.
Yeah. Will the application be compatible with the character of the neighborhood and surrounding structures in use, scale, mass, and circulation?
You know, up there at exit 30, there's nothing up there. I think that's an ideal place for what they're proposing to put up there. Western being, back in the juniper trees with dispersed RV places and place where people can take horses. I think it's perfect location for it.
You got a comment? Will the application result in over-intrusive use of the land or excessive depletion of natural resources? I think as we've had this described, and in reality, we're not going over the unit itself. We're essentially just going over the zone change itself, not the RV.
Correct.
So changing it to highway commercial, do we see any?
To me, the business itself is irrelevant almost. They're just asking for a zone change. Seems simple and straightforward to me. I don't see any way.
So the
I
only,
don't even have any concerns.
the only concern would be the depletion of natural resources would be the water. And if they don't have the water, they're not going to put it in. So I don't think it's a concern.
Will the application have a material adverse effect on the community capital improvement program? I think in that area, we don't really have a lot of capital improvements going on up there. So, will the application require a level of community facilities and services greater than which is available? I think just changing to highway commercial. Do you see any issue with that? Will the application result in undue traffic congestion and traffic hazards? And it's currently light commercial and we're going to highway commercial, so I don't see a dramatic change in that.
You know, the concern that the lady brought up previously, she's departed now, but I don't think that she understood where it was at. We're located up on exit 30 where there's the only traffic up there is people going up the freeway or possibly taking the early exit to get up to Ventura. So I don't see any adverse effect.
Okay, will the application cause significant air, odor, water, light, or noise pollution? And again, in that area where there's a few residences and not a lot of other items, does anybody see a concern with that? Will the application otherwise be detrimental to the health, safety, and welfare of the present or future inhabitants of the city? Anybody see where that would create an issue?
And if it did to the surrounding neighbors, if there were any, they would bring it up when we fight for, where they would bring it on, right?
Does the application meet the requirements of the general plan? And keeping in mind, I think the general plan does say that we do need to bring commercial into the area, and I think in this area where there's really not much of anything other than a few residences. Does anybody have any concerns in that area? All right, according to section 10-8-3B, the zone district amendment shall be approved unless the planning commission finds that the amendment must be approved unless the planning commission finds that the amendment meets the approved list of standards and conditions. I don't think we have any concerns with the items that we brought up. Do we have a motion on this item?
I'll make a motion to recommend approval of business item F3. One light industrial to highway commercial.
Do we have a second?
Second.
Those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Congratulations on your zone change.
When all the houses move into Westfield, I might be staying.
Okay. Item 9, which is listed, is on the Precept Holding LLC, and that did not come forward prepared for this evening. Is that correct, Mike?
Right, that's the old Jewish Junction property out of Anderson Junction, and they have preliminary site plan approval. Their next step is to get the construction drawings approved, and that is the step that they were unable to complete for tonight's meeting, so this will have to be postponed until.
Do we need a motion to do that, or is that just a given that it's postponed?
I think that we can manage to take it.
All right. Do we have a motion?
Can you answer questions on it prior to that, or do you want to wait till next meeting?
Yeah.
We're not going to take any action on it, so we probably ought to just skip it until next month. Do we have a motion?
I'll motion to table item F9.
Second. Okay. Those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, we'll table that item and put it on next month's agenda. And discussion of possible recommendation on preliminary plat application submitted by SRC Land Holdings LLC for a 90 residential lot subdivision within 4 phases. Tax ID T3111341. Zoning is R112. And I think on the discussion on that, Mike, do you want to go through the staff comments, or do you want me to go through them? Okay. On the staff comments from the meeting we had on January 7th, correct, Mike? The applicant is seeking permission to obtain a preliminary plat on approximately 43.38 acres of property located west on Grassley Lane. The plat belongs to a parent parcel consisting of 652.26 acres. The property is currently zoned R120 and the applicant is requesting a subdivision platted at R112. This property is part of the Ash Creek Crossing PDQ overlay, which was granted by the city of Tokerville and is governed by the development agreement accepted by the city on May 12, 2008, and was subsequently amended on October 14, 2008. The agreement allows Ash Creek Crossing a total gross density of 3,116 ERUs over the entire development parcel of 1,558 acres. As part of the development agreement, the property was rezoned from MU20 to R120, and density allowed was based on the R120 zoning. A legal opinion rendered by the city attorney on December 28, 2020 indicates the developer does not need to seek further zone change requests if the total density of the entire 1,558 acres does not exceed the 3,116 ERUs granted by the agreement, and that further the applicant is required to designate their application and as statement on the final plat, the number of ERUs being used by each application and the amount of the ERUs which will be remaining after that for each plat. The development agreement also stipulates that the obligation of the parties with regards to the development of the bypass road. It should be further mentioned that the Hurricane Valley Fire District has not allowed any new subdivision to be approved in the Westfield area without the construction of a second access to the area. The plat presented to the city of Tokerville and further described as Toker Hills Phase 1 through 4 subdivision consists of 104 lots, with all lots being at least 1,200 square feet or 12,000 square feet. The lots all appear to meet the frontage requirements of the R112 lots in the Tokerville City Code. The interior roads are shown as 50-foot residential streets, which are rated to serve 50 lots. Number is exceeded in the current plat. A traffic plan and trip generation analysis should be made of the current and projected units and street grids in this area. The developer needs to submit a drainage study, a geotechnical report along with the traffic study. They also need and will serve letters from the water and sewer authorities. This plat should also be reviewed by the city engineer for correctness to form and format. The application was discussed at the staff meeting held on January 4, 2021. The following comments were made. The city of Tokerville and Hurricane Valley Fire District are concerned about the second access out of the Westfield area. The city of Tokerville and Ash Creek Special Services District said they had adequate facilities in place to handle the project. It was noted that the county ID number did not match that on the plat. Subsequent to the staff meeting held on January 4, 2021, the applicant did provide will serve letters from the city of Tokerville and Ash Creek Special Service District. The application will be heard on the February 10, 2021 Planning Commission meeting, and the public hearing will be held. It should be noted that the public hearing at the city council level is also required. This application was tabled on the February 10, 2021 Planning Commission meeting because the applicant had not supplied the traffic study as required. The applicant has since provided the traffic study. The study indicates that the intersections affected by the subdivision are relatively low use, high capacity intersections, and that they can handle the traffic generated by this project. It should also be noted that the development agreement between the city of Tokerville and the developer calls for the construction traffic to use the bypass road or alternate roads other than city streets. This condition will be satisfied at the time of construction drawings. Construction drawings are prepared and approved. The applicant has addressed the comments submitted by Alpha Engineering on the review of their preliminary plat. Okay, now for the commissioners to discuss. I actually have several comments that maybe you can answer some of these for me. I went through the entire transportation document that was presented and was actually caught a little off guard that it was still showing on your traffic flows with the bypass road in, you were still showing 40% of your traffic coming out going northbound on Westfield and 10% going southbound on Westfield to intersect with the new highway. Is that's putting a lot more additional traffic on Westfield than I thought we would have seen. I do have, I'm sure you've got a copy of your own, but that was one that actually in the transportation caught me a bit off guard. I will agree that it was brought up in there about the safety down by the bridge and that they didn't see a safety issue with the bridge. I actually have concerns that was brought up in here that not only is there just one, but there are actually 3 bus stops on Westfield, school bus stops that are used by 3 different schools. So you actually have 6 stops each day, 3 in the morning, 3 in the afternoon. The city has already been addressing concerns with the traffic, with the cars parked on Westfield and the safety issues that we are already seeing with the children waiting for the bus. So that is a concern of mine on that. Being one in Tokerville that lives on the lowest corner of Peachtree Drive. When that area was originally developed, there was one storm drain to catch all the water coming down Peachtree. That happens to be right in front of my home. During a light and moderate rainstorm, the gutters and drains will handle that. They actually came in and put an additional storm drain in, my opinion, on the wrong side of the road, and the grate's facing the wrong way, but still during a heavy rain, Peachtree Drive turns into a river that even if my house was well above grade would still come into my property. So I think everybody where you are going to be the highest ground, that is a concern for everybody downhill. And one thing we would be looking for, and I'm sure Mike's going to address, is a very substantial storm drain system to keep the water where it belongs. Go ahead.
A drainage study will verify this, but I'm pretty sure that we plan on taking most of it directly south along the road that runs along the east boundary. So a lot of that drainage that used to go down into the neighborhoods from the hills will be diverted now to go completely south. So it should improve everybody's drainage.
To kind of answer some of the questions that was brought up in the public forum on this, on the R112. And that was, we did get the legal opinion that they don't have to come in for a formal zone change, which I actually addressed my concerns with that on the NPDOs and the PDO. That citizens may not know when you're coming in to discuss a plat coming out, that a zone can change without someone formally coming out and saying we're having a hearing on a zone change. So
Based on the NPDO.
correct.
That gives them permission for.
Right. It's in a development agreement, and that is what the attorney came back with, is they are not required to come out through the normal zone change process.
What was the original development agreement approved?
2007 was when it was first. I read the minutes on the 2007 Planning Commission meeting, and essentially it's quite interesting because the same comments that came up tonight were essentially the same comments that were brought up in the original Planning Commission meeting. If you read the comments, it's water, it's traffic, it's the same thing. So being able to manage the growth. So has always been this city's concern. So I don't want to take up the whole time on this. Do we have any?
Good stuff. Let's hear it.
Just some of the areas that I've highlighted out of the development agreement is requirements and land use approval application for residential development and development parcels. Each residential development application submitted by a developer or subdeveloper. Let me see if this is actually coming in right on yours or not. It is. So this would be item B, and I'm trying to remember which section it's in. Within the ACC project shall, in addition to those items required by the city's land use ordinances, include a statement of the base density within the entire ACC's project as of the date of the application, the number of ERUs and densities sought under that particular land use application for that particular development parcel, and the balance of the unallocated base densities. The city shall not approve any land use approval application for the residential development where the proposed development will create a situation where the base density is exceeded. And that again is to go into where you can go with the more dense area, as long as you don't exceed your essential ERUs are essentially rooftops. So for those that, when we're talking in these initials, that
Dan, the representative stated that the lots now will be 1,200, or is it
12,000 square feet.
12,000 square feet. He said usable space. Is that actually written in the NPDO that it's usable space, or could it actually be? So there's a statement that sounds nice, but in reality, legally.
no, it's essentially, it's an R112 lot. So it's,
So whether it's usable or not, doesn't matter.
it's the lot size itself. So, yeah. And this one is, where this was done, and it actually references section 16, which is no longer 1016 in the ordinance. So I assume that ordinance has changed. And this is listed as a PDO, not an MPDO, which falls under 15B currently and not 15C, which allows density bonuses. So this one, approval on land use applications other than PDO preliminary site plan. And this, for those who want to come up after the meeting and look at this is actually the original site plan that was submitted. And when you're talking about where the church is and where different areas are, I think we've got a church listed, we've got a commercial area listed. This is what the original agreement was done on. If anybody would like to come and look at it after the meeting, I ask you don't draw on it. So we have two copies. This is one of them, which may answer some of the questions. Mitigation of the effects of construction. Prior to commencement of any construction or development activity within the ACC project, developer and all sub-developer, their successors and assigned shall develop a construction mitigation plan, which shall be approved by the city. Construction mitigation plan shall include procedure and requirements to be adhered to by the developer while conducting any development activity within the ACC project. Said construction mitigation plan shall provide for the temporary construction of alternative construction routes and for the mitigation and or elimination of fugitive dust, debris, smells, odors, and noise. The standards and requirements set forth in the construction mitigation plan shall comply with all local, state, and federal environmental regulations and statutes. The construction mitigation plan shall provide that all construction traffic shall be conducted only on the bypass road or alternate routes other than existing city streets. The developer shall comply with the hours of construction restrictions prescribed by the city standards and specifications for the public improvements of the ordinances. And I'm reading some of these because I think it'll help answer some of the questions that was actually brought up in the public comments tonight.
Chairman Catlin, can I interrupt there? I'd like to know where the secondary road is. You said it's going to go out and around, but I want to know where that's going to go, because we've been fighting with that as a city for a while to have a secondary exit out there, and we haven't been able to crack that code. So I'd kind of like to know where that's going.
It hasn't been set, but it's not a secondary road, it's a fire access road or a fire emergency road. That's what was discussed at planning staff.
Where's it? You have any idea where it might go? Because
one of the
Westfield out to say Old Church or something, and put all the traffic on that road, which is going to be
well, not construction traffic. I don't think it is a good idea to take construction traffic out there. It was discussed that Old Church would be a good emergency escape road. It would only be used in a fire emergency, so it's very unlikely to be used.
If I can clarify, we're actually speaking two different items.
So where's the construction traffic going to go if it's not going to be on Westfield?
City streets.
Yeah. It actually.
And we're asking. Yeah, And I are requesting that we are allowed to use city streets for 6 months.
Is that Westfield Road?
Well, it's any city street.
Part of Westfield Road at least.
Get out there because
At least part of it would be necessary. Yeah. And again, we just need temporary. We need to be able to get going. We need to be able to get a cash flow going. This is a super expensive endeavor. And it will be temporary and it'll have a ceiling to it.
Okay, if I could, and part of the discussion that occurred in the staff meeting with the fire district, and that's where I say we're actually talking two different things. The discussion went in the staff meeting that we're looking at them being able to do the infrastructure work, the roads and infrastructure, but a permit to actually build a home would not be issued until there was a secondary access per the fire district, and that access would have been approved by the fire district. That it was accessible for emergency access and for evacuations. This item was brought up by a citizen to one of the city council members who brought it to our attention. And this one's a bit more difficult to get past, to be quite honest with you, because it clearly states that construction and traffic cannot use city streets, which to me, you would have to access the property either by a state or county road. So
We need city cooperation.
well, and that's where I'm saying, and that's kind of where the planning commission is in a bit of a difficult situation, because we can't change any agreements. We can make recommendations. We're only to interpret how we read the agreement.
Understood.
It's up to the attorneys to figure anything else out, and for our recommendation forward to the city council on what our opinion is. So.
We would propose a temporary agreement.
And that's what we would have to review on how we would view this and how we would put it forward to the city council. So, and the final decision would be made there.
And I know it probably doesn't sound, it doesn't sound low impact to any resident, but there would be there would be mobilization that brings in the equipment, and then it is like 10 pickup trucks a day of workers coming and going. It's really not super intensive. After earthwork is done, then they would be bringing in pipe, but it's not like home construction. It's actually more busy because there's more stuff involved.
Well, and that was part of the discussion with at the staff meeting was if we're gonna allow the infrastructure work, and again, this was before this particular paragraph was brought to my attention.
Right.
That you would take your heavy equipment in, drop it, and it would stay there until that equipment is done. It would not be being transported back and forth. It would.
And we did discuss at that meeting a ceiling of COs,
Right.
maybe a certain number so that we could start building houses, but it would stop at a certain point that, we would have the fire access road in by that time. As soon as any vertical was happening, that fire access would be established at that time.
I say that or again, and we're gonna have to move on from this item, but that was kind of the thoughts where I was at, and I think staff was at
Understood.
prior to the wrench, to be quite honest with you, in the agreement. So.
And tonight we're just discussing preliminary plat. This isn't building or housing.
No.
Not voting on the actual construction, is that correct?
Well, it's whether to recommend allowing them to move forward on what the proposed preliminary plat. So, yeah.
But there's other mechanisms in place before a house can be built up as far as emergency, the bypass road.
Those conditions would have to go within what's written in the current agreement, unless that agreement, the city decides to renegotiate that and make an amendment to that agreement. We can only go by the current ordinances and the current agreement.
So I just want to be clear what we're actually discussing to motion.
Mr. Versmack.
Just so the planning commission understands, and maybe the folks in the audience, once the preliminary plat has been accepted by the city council, the next step that we move into is we move into the development of the construction drawing. This actually addresses the water, the sewer, the gas, the drainage, streets, and all of those things. Once that's approved, then we move into approving the final plat. And then at the time of final plat approval, we would recommend approval based on completed construction drawings. This would be a good time for the planning commission and the city council to review the mitigation agreement that we talked about best and all of those sorts of things. And it would also be a time to address any other concerns that we have as far as construction activity. Because still at that point in time, there hasn't been any construction activity taking place.
Well, and I think this, and kind of the way I view it is this with actually having the public here is kind of give them an overall picture of what the project is. Kind of a background, because I don't think everybody's going to go pull the agreement out and read it. Kind of give an understanding of where we are and what really the planning commission looks at when we're doing this. So understanding we're on the very initial stages of this, but we would still put forward to the city council whether we approve and any concerns that we do have. So. Again, the other ones I've highlighted, I think are, I don't want to beat a dead horse, but oh, sorry for the horse people here, but yeah. I didn't say donkey, but and we are going to talk about we are doing some amendments to the MPDO ordinance and looking and discussing the PDO ordinance later in this, but that is some other areas that we are concerned about and some of the things that have come up through staff and some of the applications that have come in. So my initial look at this, and I'm always concerned not only about the development coming in, is what impact that will have on the residents, essentially their neighbors. And my concern, and one of the things I'm going to talk about on the PDO and MPDO, is the property that is immediately adjacent to where a MPDO or a PDO comes in, and the relevant lot sizes. On this one, I don't think this initial plat is that big a concern because you have the authority, you have the ability through the agreement to go to a different lot size, and the Mulberry lots are also 112. So it's, in my opinion, is not that, you're not changing anything from what's already there. So further south on Mulberry, it's R120. So if you were coming in with an R112 and wanted to put it right next to an R120, I would have more of a concern. Where you're putting R112 right next to R112 here, that's
There will overlap on the lower end of it.
on Mulberry.
Yeah.
Grassy Lane, there's 1.1.
Yeah.
Yeah, so, yeah, south Grassy Lane, it's going to impact.
And that to me is a concern when you're going to smaller lot size than the existing lot sizes there, especially with the ones in this particular area and the work they went through and the money they spent to change their area to an R1.
Without a buffer zone between.
So that is personally is a concern of mine when you're coming in, dropping a smaller lot into being neighbors that came in with a specific size lot. So I do have concerns about that. Okay, I've dominated the entire talk. So any other commissioners?
I have a couple of questions about the actual lot numbers that Anita brought up. It says like, it goes up to 137 up on this into, so if we're just looking at the preliminary plot, it is off in numbers. So I don't know if it was an error on the application or an error.
We need to take care of the question. I have a corrected copy here, so.
That just shows 90. It just shows 90. That's what you're looking for, or what is the number that you're? 101.
Well, and Mike, confirm me if I'm wrong, but the roads that you were looking at on that, the 100 already exceeds that, or the going excess of 100 exceeds the capabilities of the roadway, correct?
50-foot wide roads will accommodate between 2 and 50 units.
Okay.
But if there's two accesses, in the same street, that could account for some of it. That's why we wanted the traffic study done. As far as street width.
Okay.
We got more than enough street to handle it.
Okay. Yeah, that was, I just wanted to cover the comments that were made in staff.
That's not based on our opinion, that's based on ordinance and preset things. We wouldn't want any more traffic, I just want to make that clear if I was just here listening. But it can handle it because it's based on already preset statistics and how much a road that's 50 feet wide can handle or whatever. So that's not anything we can argue that it's too much traffic, but our job is to decide whether it fits the written criteria. So if the public is interested in making changes, they need to be here for the discussions on the master plan development over the MPDOs and those things that we've been working on for the last couple of years. It's kind of like all those decisions in many ways have already been made.
Well, and a lot of it's based on the development agreement that the city signs with the individual developer.
Correct.
We can get into if we do have concerns like we do on Westfield, is in our recommendation, if we do recommend to approve that we are concerned about the cars that are parked on each side of the road on Westfield, and if we're going to increase the traffic by that much, we may want to consider doing no traffic in the area. I mean, no parking in the area to handle the additional traffic, or if we have safety concerns about the bus stops.
As a
So
training question for me, how long do we have to honor an agreement that was done in 2008?
it's actually
Even though
called
our
out, and
MPDO
it's,
changed.
yeah.
So it's forever?
Yeah. The city can review it on an annual basis, but the agreement is not when they did the development agreement, the individual who owns it stays with the land even if they sell the land, if it's a new owner.
And it's grandfathered in no matter what changes.
Well, they do, in the agreement, they have to go, when they bring a plat forward to the planning commission, it has to go with the current ordinances.
So it does have to be updated. from that standpoint.
We can't go in and impact their rooftops, but they do have to comply with when they bring a plat in, it actually has to go with the current ordinances that the city has, so.
That's good.
Yeah.
I have one other question also. If you're delayed, or let's say the bypass road does get in the move, do you have a plan also to tie into them? Do you have a road?
We're actually gonna ask you to step up so she can get it on the minutes, on the recording.
Yes. The updated, or the current preliminary plat that I have shows the connection road of this phase to the bypass road. And I will send that in tomorrow. I didn't know that you didn't have it. We switched, one of the engineers, the lead engineer switched recently, so that's how they got dropped. I do have a copy. I have a copy of it here and would love to talk to anybody that wants to pour over that map later tonight. Look at some details, but I'll also send copies to Bruce.
Is that the plat that you would rather use rather than this one that we have that we're talking about approving or unapproved? So would it be better to push the new plat forward instead of this plat?
It's 95% similar. It just cleans up those numbering issues. It shows the connecting road to the bypass road. And so it resolves the connection to the bypass road like everybody wants, I believe.
For me on the traffic study, and I'll be honest with you, when I read the traffic study and it said Westfield connected to the bypass road, and I didn't quite see how that happened, I actually drove that. Yeah, it actually does connect to it, and they've got it staked out and ran a blade down from essentially where the bridge is down to where it connects to Westfield. But
It is a little unusual that the developer would change the plat and not order the property.
Well, and that's actually, to me, we've got a couple of issues now because we're looking to make a motion on something that we haven't seen yet, to be quite honest with you. And I don't know how we make a recommendation to move forward or not on a plat that we haven't viewed and that hasn't been put through staff. And is that plat what the traffic study was done on, or the old plat?
Yes. The traffic study is more general, but you absolutely have choice to do whatever you want in this case, but it's not unusual to have small changes to a preliminary plat as you're refining it. But so it's about degree, I think. So when I say 95%, it's going to look essentially like that. There's the lot numbering is corrected, and it includes the connection to the bypass road.
I personally don't feel comfortable moving forward this tonight. The increase of traffic, I don't have a problem with the infrastructure going in out there, the roads, the sidewalks, curb, gutter, whatever. But any houses go up there, then we're going to start getting the construction. We're going to have a little bit of construction from the infrastructure. And I understand the need for getting some cash flow out of that to keep it going. But I think the increase of traffic on Westfield far outweighs that. And if the fire department's saying that they don't want any new subdivisions out there, why are we even thinking moving forward without the bypass going in?
Well, but let me clarify that. The fire department doesn't want any homes built.
Okay, but he
Right.
wants 50 houses. That's what I'm, that's a subdivision.
Well, and and I think that's what Mike was trying to cover is the different stages we get into is getting to the point where we're going to say, yeah, go ahead and build a house is far different from what we're doing currently. So, like I say, I think we've got the concerns now with the different plat than what what's been reviewed in staff and what we're reviewing now. I think the concerns that were already brought forward in staff and from the fire department that there will not be a building permit for a home issued until there is a secondary access in. In the staff meeting, the fire department was essentially okay with the infrastructure going in, but not a home going in, correct? If I'm right. So, and I think they're the ones who were most serious about their being able to evacuate and get equipment in. So they didn't have a big concern about the infrastructure going in, but they did not want to see a home going in until we had an emergency access in.
I also have an issue with the traffic study. I understand that's probably low density, just sheer number wise of vehicles out there, but it increases every day. And that we don't have law enforcement here. We get the sheriffs out there once in a while, but there is no enforcement out there, and it's crazy. I'm out there every day, and there's a lot of cars going high speeds. I watch them go past the bus stop out there, and kids are standing out there. There's cars parked there. It's a dangerous situation, and I think any increase to that's just going to be a negative effect on the city and possible problems.
Well, and I think we need to kind of stay on task on what we're doing. And I think the traffic and the study and what the roads are engineered to handle. And there again, I think we've got to stay within what's in the ordinance, what the infrastructure can handle and what it can't handle. But also get to the point of where we're at is we're looking at the preliminary plat. And so far as going beyond that, we're not really stepping beyond that. Like I say, my hardest part right now is we're discussing moving forward on a preliminary plat that has not been reviewed by staff and we haven't seen. To be quite honest, and I understand, and it's a bit difficult for us to do that because essentially we put so much weight on the staff review
Right. And
before it comes to us that
I would love to, if you could give me 2 minutes to just lay it out in front of you, you could look at it and see what it looks like compared. You'll see that it looks really, really similar. It's just these little refinements, like I said.
and I'm going to defer to Mike on this, who is the one that.
Well,
These are really small
on the
changes.
preliminary plats, as far as the technical issues, we send that to our engineering firm, which is out engineering for review. And they did a review on the plat, but now I don't know which plat they reviewed, so.
You can look at it compared to what was up on the screen, and you could see visually that it's the same thing. We're not changing any lot sizes. We're grading. We had
Your timeline that you're looking at and understanding our timeline on what it takes us process to get through. If this was to go with the new plat going through staff again, to evaluate it and have Alpha Engineering evaluate it, whether there actually is any changes, is going to be essentially a 30-day change from where we currently are.
And they also look through all this stuff at the construction plan stage, so this is going to get homed over many times before.
I understand that. I understand that. And to be quite honest with you, we went out a month on this one already, and understand that setback.
But this is kind of the question is, how did the numbers change? So how did they change if the lot size didn't change?
That's just the numbering of the lot itself.
So there's
None of the lot sizes changed.
It's not the, yeah, so like this is new, this is the connection to the bypass road. And then there were like 3 lots here.
Okay,
Well, there was a cul-de-sac here, we had them do this curve.
Okay, here's my issue with being the chairman on this and not a motion maker or a voting member on it. I would feel much more comfortable if, with the change in the plat, that it went through staff again, just to make sure that we are reviewing the same thing and making the same motions. I have a hard time with the change coming in on the night of the hearing, to have the change come in and be expected to make a motion to move forward on it, to be quite honest with you.
It's our only way to legally protect us in the cities if we have the engineering firm move the actual spot. I don't know.
And I understand some things can change, and actually in an MPDO, you've got great latitude in doing changes, but those changes have to be identified before it comes to planning commission. So I kind of expect the ducks to be in a row when you hit our table, to be quite honest with you. And to come in and say something's different, than we're looking at something different than what we've spent in my last 2 months reviewing this. So I'm trying to be kind in this, but I do not feel comfortable without it going through the new plat, going through a review.
I understand, and whatever you guys got to do, it's just, there will be little changes from here to the construction plans, and the construction plans will tease out what the final thing is in the final plan. So
Okay.
these are normal things that, in my experience, are quite normal, but I understand that you guys.
$1 million projects before, so I understand that there are changes, but there again, when you're going before an organization has to approve whether you're going to do it or not, I'm pretty sure I have my changes ironed out before I get there. And if there are changes later for the next review, that's the time to bring that up. I'm going to be quite honest with you, you'd have been better off waiting, going through with the initial and then coming back on the next series saying, we have to make these changes. But to try and do the change now, and then we would have required it to go through staff again. So I would recommend, that it goes through staff again, just to make sure we're all seeing it exactly the way it is. And that actually will give the opportunity for some to try and work through the other concern of this, of the access off to city streets, to be quite honest with you. Go ahead.
Matt Lou.
Where you live, Matt?
Not here. I should live here, but I live over in St. George. I may lose a job for saying this, but I've done 18 years of working on your side of the fence in St. George City and Washington City. I think I absolutely respect your stance. I think we need to make sure that if we submit something, that it is as accurate as possible, and that what staff has a chance to review, they review. I believe this being the first of hopefully many coming through, that we'd like to avoid these situations moving forward. So saying that, I will be, again, if I still have a job tomorrow, well, I'm not even here yet, but anyway, I will be the go-to guy. Myself and Scott will be the go-to guys. As far as here on out, if there's anything going on with this project, I am the guy that will handle all of the issues and challenges that may come with it. Saying that, our role here is not to be like other developers. Our role here is to protect the uniqueness and the spirit of Tocqueville. And that's everything that we're here right now. The bypass road, I believe, is a blessing. It'll move 4.5 million people off of this road out front and move it to the valley. And it'll bypass what you have here. That's our priority, is to protect what you have here. There has been some legitimate concerns that was brought up tonight that we will need to address as a developer. And we would like to move forward, not tonight, we would like to move forward as we work through this process and as we come in with other plans and phases and commercial centers and parks and regional parks. I mean, this is going to be a long haul. We'll be attached to each other for at least the next 10, 15 years. So we want to make sure that our first go at this is as tight and as concise and as correct as possible. So we respect your stance. We believe you have a job to do. We do not want to make it difficult. We don't want to make the concerns of people not be heard. We are here to hear that. We are here to address it the best we can, but we also have some responsibilities on our side. But I believe at the end of the day that we can work together and do this managed growth that we've talked about tonight and do it right. We have one chance. Again, one more thing and I'll sit down. Originally, I'm from Hawaii. I believe that there are places in the world that people go to heal. One of them is Hawaii. I believe this is one of those places as well. So I think we need to keep that spirit and keep the reason why this valley is so special. And as coming in as a developer, you've heard the numbers. We're coming in with over 3,000, maybe more, depending on what happens. We need to make sure that we do this right, and we don't affect and overextend the needs and the concerns that the good people talk about. That's all I have to say. Thanks.
Well, I appreciate it, and I hope you still have a job. But
Clarification question for Mike. Is there a reason why we didn't address in the staff comments in the original agreement, they weren't allowed to use the roads for construction? Is that not being voted on in this plat? Is that a separate issue, or is that a? I didn't see it.
Yeah, it's there.
I see number 1, 2, and 3. I didn't see it.
Second paragraph on the second page, second paragraph up from the bottom.
Got it. Is there a reason why the developers didn't come up with a good faith plan to say, hey, we've looked at every alternative, here's our costs, here's why we can't do it? I don't know why the developers are just asking us to let them just use the streets. I haven't seen any effort.
Well, and I can tell
I
you,
wouldn't know that. I wish you guys would have come prepared to explain why you wanted us to just pass that off. That would be helpful for the next time.
well, and I can be quite honest with you. I read through the entire development agreement, and I missed that, to be honest with you. And it was actually a citizen that brought it to the attention of the city council. So far as the construction on the construction vehicles not being allowed to use the city streets, but
I think a lot of people missed that part. As for a separate construction access, we've looked, and so has city staff, we've looked and we've tried to brainstorm ideas, and there's no obvious answer, otherwise we would have employed that.
What was it originally in 2008 supposed to be? There must have been a plan.
I don't know that there was. The bypass road was supposed to be in first is what it said, and we're just hoping that we can have a little overlap. We can get 6 months so we can get things started. And once the bypass road's in, everybody will use that because it's just the road to use.
personally, I haven't ever seen,
Construction traffic.
I actually have never seen a thing where the construction vehicles couldn't use the city
So
street.
that part, I think, escaped a lot of people. We were just looking for a good construction access because you always do that. And there wasn't a really good alternative. And then we didn't know there was that.
As Mr. Versumack reminds me, I'm too black and white sometimes, but I think we need to postpone this and have the new plat go through the review and set this again for, Mike, we could have this ready to go next month.
This table, does it need a public hearing? Or public hearing has already been?
Yeah, that,
As long as we can settle things with staff, is that okay?
well, if we don't see any substantial change, would this public hearing be sufficient, or does it have to go through an entire public hearing again?
It does not have to go through a public hearing, but it still has to be heard at the time.
Right, okay.
So we could go through staff, make sure all the changes are correct, and then we get it.
Okay.
Approval, review and approval.
Right. And we're going to take into consideration the exact comments that were here again, and you're going to be facing the same, your biggest stumbling block to me is the city street issue. So for the construction vehicles is what I can see. The other issues we're going to hit so far as the water flows and everything else that further down in the later reviews, but just be aware those are there. And I'm also concerned when you're putting an R112 right next to an existing R120. I personally have a real issue with that. But I think that at least if you're going in next to a larger lot, and that's actually one thing we're going to discuss tonight, is you at least have to put in a couple of rows of R120 and buffer yourself in, and you can do whatever you want.
It's been the general consensus in all of our meetings is that someone can just come and put, whatever next to a
An adjacent, yeah.
been planned for, years to have an R120, and R120 seems to be the standard that everybody wants. And so everybody's opinion has been that at least that row that comes in connection with your property remain the same, and then
You can adjust out from there.
the new buyers can adjust it, not the people that have to deal with it or that have lived there. And that might be something to look at in the preliminary here for maybe the next one. It might make it a lot easier for public.
And I'm going to be very honest with you. There's nothing in the ordinance right now that we can require you to do that. It is a good neighbor thing, and I'm actually proposing that we do put that type of language in our ordinance. So that's part of our discussion. We're kind of bleeding over into the MPDO discussion that's going to be going on. But that, from the public standpoint, has been a concern that, right now with the flexibility you have in a PDO or an MPDO, you can come in and put a multifamily or an apartment building right next to a residential area. And we really, as long as you don't exceed your ERUs, it's a pretty tough argument. So I actually, in protection of the city, I would like to put some language in protection of the citizens that are already existing, and the current zones are already there. Some language that you've got to give some kind of a buffer from what the existing is. So that's just, to me, is a good neighbor part of it. I think, anybody have a motion on this particular plat?
Have you guys ever thought about switching to an MPDO development instead of the PDO? Have not?
You'd have to open the entire agreement back up, and I'm not sure. I don't know if that's something you'd want to do or not, but. Right. Compatible with, you're actually talking away from the mic again, which Ruth is going to be mad at me, but the main difference between the PDO and the MPDO is being able to get a bonus density in the MPDO, and you currently don't have the staffing requirements in a PDO that you're required in an MPDO. So there's. Okay.
Let's say.
Do we have a motion on this one?
Make a motion that we table item F10.
Do you have the new plat go through the review?
Yeah.
Until our engineering contractor.
Okay. Well, do I have a clear motion now?
I just want to table it. It'll just, I don't want to put it, I don't want to put any stipulations because they're going to change. So
Okay.
I'd say table F10 until next agenda.
month?
I'll second that motion.
Okay. Those in favor?
Aye.
Any approved? Any opposed? Okay. We'll table it until the next meeting. Well, if you guys would look at the traffic modeling though for me, and just kind of give us an idea what we're going to be looking at. That was a concern of mine when I saw that. I wasn't expecting that. So. Well, sorry guys. Hopefully it's. You got number 11 on the back. Yep. All right. Good luck. Okay, we've got the item number 11, discussion of possible recommendation of ordinance 2021 XX1015C MPDO density bonus. An ordinance amending the density bonus calculations, definitions, and basis for calculations. We actually had the public hearing on this the last meeting. It did not move forward because the copy we had did not have the red line items on it. Ruth has put forward the copy that both the final, what it would look like, as well as the copy with the red lines. I do want to bring in one of the discussion items on the MPDO that I would like to see added to that. And I know we had gone through this before, completely through it, but in some things that have happened in city council meeting, as well as things coming into staff. Oh, Let me find all my papers now. You've got the red line. Has everybody got that? The red line copy?
Yeah, everything looked really good to me. I think we got a clean version now, and I think it's got back to the original. So.
Okay. And that, like I say, that was strictly what we had changed to and put the red lines in. There are two things that I would like to bring up, and it's concerns that were driven out of MPDO, people that have applied for MPDOs, and driven from the attorney's comment that they do not need to go through a formal zone change. Again, if I can find my own papers, this would be really good.
Mike, while he's doing that, my question about this staff comment was actually not a critique, but that's how it came across. I was hoping you guys had come up with a solution for it, and that's why it wasn't, but you noted it, I just didn't see it, but it wasn't meant as a critique, but that's how it came across after I asked it. I actually just was hoping that there was more information, and it just wasn't there, I just didn't see it, so.
And that's a tricky trip. Looking for another way out of Westfield area.
That's what I was looking for, is more information.
Well, and I'll be quite honest with you, when I read that paragraph about the city streets, which caught me so off guard, I was trying to see the rationale why they would have done that, and I, to be quite honest
You
with
mean
you.
why they would have agreed to it?
Yeah, why it was proposed and why it would have, why if I was a developer, that I would have agreed to it. But reading through the entire document 15 times, I couldn't see that. Ruth, can you pull up the discussion items and pull up the MPDO comments out of the discussion items? Oh,
I have a question concerning the MPDO.
go ahead.
Recently extended life, we have an R115 zoning.
Correct.
The MPDO addresses policies being available for R120 and not for R112. Does it address R115?
No, everything, what we are proposing is everything that comes through on an MPDO will come through with a base density of 120. And that's where you'll,
Anything smaller than that is not.
well, that's where you'll calculate your ERUs through and where you'll go for your base density, for your density bonuses from that.
Base density
Right.
period.
So there again, it's like this, the base density on the PDO we were just discussing was R120, but they could do R112. They can do R115. But their ERUs and their density is based off R120. And we've kind of trying to set it so we can compare apples to apples on any MPDO that comes in, that the base density will always come in as R120. And then that'll set their base ERUs and we'll go from there.
I just wanted to make sure that's covered.
No, they can still do that, but you can't come in with R115 on an MPDO. It's required you come in at R120. Doesn't mean all your lots are going to be R120. That's just your base calculations.
A training question for him. So I don't know how to ask these outside of this meeting because I know there's ethical issues.
Yeah, we're not supposed to have a meeting outside this meeting?
Right,
Okay.
so let me ask, what is the minimum lot size with all of the bonuses that someone can actually have based on the current MPDO?
You can actually get into multifamily, you can get into apartment complexes, you can get into condominiums.
Well, that's just it.
Yeah.
When you do an MPDO, lot size is basically other than calculation of units goes out the window.
Okay.
And we need to get an equivalent residential unit, that's what we got to use.
So an apartment counts.
As long
Well,
as
it's
you have
like,
plenty of other space, or you have
You can't.
10 5-acre plots, and then you can
Right.
put a ton of little houses.
Right.
And we can say nothing about it, right? We have no say.
Well, we
The
can.
MPDOs.
You still have some say on the approval of each phase.
It's still got to go in compliance with the general plan. It's still got to go with the general plan. It still can't be completely contradictory to other parts in that area. And that's kind of what I'm trying to bring up with this. If you've got an R120, I would like you immediately adjacent to what your border is. If it's MU or if it's agriculture, I don't think cows are going to be upset if you come in at R112 or if you come in with a multifamily. But if someone's got an R120 and you want to come in at R112 or come in with a multifamily, I think we need to find some way to protect the current residents that are here.
And that's not in the current MPO.
No, it's not.
That's the problem. And I think most of the residents want to hear it. Look, I just want us to know that I don't care how many bonuses they give, we just don't want a million small lots next to each other anymore.
You want
That's
to
the
scroll,
minimum.
you want to scroll down? Who's got it up? You, Ruth, or down to where right there. It is not the intent of the MPDO to replace a simple conventional or phase subdivision as described in section 1019. The MPDO is intended for subdivisions with such size, geographic challenges, or complexity that could not be facilitated in a subdivision specified in 1019. And where I'm trying to go with that is, if it's just a simple subdivision or a regular conventional subdivision, don't come in for an MPDO simply so you can bypass the zone change ordinance. I think we've had one come in that I don't know why it's coming in, even coming in as an MPDO. The other thing, and scroll down.
That particular subdivision came in, they don't change from R120 to R112.
I know, and he's trying to come in the other way now, so. This is the other one I was talking about, where a phase of the MPDO is adjacent to an existing residential zone which is not part of the MPDO. The phase immediately adjacent must be equal to or less dense than the existing zone. Example, if the existing zone outside of the MPDO is R115 single family, the MPDO could not be multifamily or smaller in size than R115.
Is this a change that you're?
This is what I'm suggesting.
You want to not send this F11 through?
No, what I'm saying is we could send the F11 through as it is with a recommendation of these two additional changes added to it.
How
And
would
see,
any property then ever get less than R120? How would you ever get a smaller apartment?
well, because if it's the same thing with these on Mulberry. They're R112 and they're coming in and putting in R112. If they wanted to, if it was R115 and they came in and says, I want to put in
It's
R112.
just about pre-established, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
My bad.
Yeah.
Bad question.
So, and to give you an example where that, and Mike had brought this up when I kind of brought this up before, is you've got some undeveloped land that is under an MPDO, which is zoned R120. So if this MPDO borders that, that would obligate this MPDO to be R120 on that border.
Yeah, so they respect pre-existing.
Right. So whoever the first one is in to get the residential zoning is the one that's going to drive if an MPDO comes in next to it.
Or they can get smaller, more dense housing other places, just not right where there's somebody.
Right. Right. So I'm just trying to protect the citizens that were there first, that got zoned there first, and say, okay, if you're going to come in, you've got to at least put a bit of a buffer and transition into a smaller lot.
Let's work that together.
Okay?
Let's say we've got an MPDO.
Okay.
And they start against R120 and they've got R120.
Okay.
And they were capped and they're at multifamily.
Okay.
Another property owner who's adjoining them to the west comes in and he wants to do R120.
Okay.
Is that, are you okay with that?
Yeah, you can go larger. You can go less dense. You just can't go more dense. If it's going next to an apartment building, yeah. Not if it's next to an R120, no.
It's not an MPDO, it's just a conventional subdivision.
He's going to have to come in for the zone change, yeah. And then you're going to take public comment from those existing property owners that are there.
If it's an already existing thing, then somebody knows what they're buying, even if they're buying an R120 lot and against an apartment building, they know that the apartment building's already established.
My issue, Mike, is the flexibility that's given to an MPDO, and I understand it and I appreciate it, but I don't think it should be able to have a negative impact on an existing property owner that's already zoned, got a residential zone. What you do interior to that, you're free to run with, because general plan is already talking about doing clustering and low income housing. And I'm just saying, if you're adjacent to an existing residential zone, you can't come in and put an apartment complex next to an R120 residential area. You have to go R120 or larger and then transition into your more dense area. And all I'm trying to do is protect the existing property owners that are there.
The MPDO that we were talking about, this is exactly what he's done. He is R120 against R120, and he works out.
So
This one,
the one that we were talking about.
MPDO, is it?
it's a PDO.
The one in question.
Huh?
The walls of it, the wall.
Okay.
Right.
That's exactly what he's done, just what you said. He started against the existing.
Right.
R120s, and he started low R120s.
Yep.
And he goes R112, and he goes,
And then he put twin homes next to an R120.
but there's nothing there.
It's zoned R120.
Isn't everything in zone?
No, it's not. I'm saying if it is zoned R120, you can't put a multifamily in there right next to it. I'm also on this one saying that an MPDO should be a minimum of 200 acres. That's my recommendation. A PDO can be 5 or larger. And it should be a unique terrain that's causing it, and it shouldn't be just a simple subdivision. You know as well as I am, there's some of them that are coming in, they got rejected at R112, so they're coming in on an MPDO, so they don't have to get rezoned. I'm just saying, I'm trying to cover, since you're not gonna go through a zone change, to give the people a chance to come in and say, I'm living right next to that, I did all this, I don't want that to be rezoned. In an MPDO, when the legal opinion came in and says they can do whatever they want as long as they don't exceed their ERUs, you've taken to me the protection of people being able to come in and say, no, I don't want an apartment building right next to my house.
Okay, now that's it. Stop
Okay.
right there.
Yep.
Next to my house. Mr. Wall, we're talking about their property, and you're talking about just zoning. I think you have an uphill battle in court to try and substantiate that.
Yeah.
You might have some grounds if you've got.
If there are existing residences,
You might get away with that.
Okay.
Where he graduates to twin homes and he's adjacent to vacant property, I don't think you could.
even though it's zoned R120. Well, and I don't have a problem changing that language to who gets there first gets the bill.
I've asked this question like 5 times and I can't remember every time, but is the zone changed ever inside the MPDO? So inside an MPDO, when they come and do the preliminary plats and that, does it change ever inside the MPDO?
You're talking base density?
I think.
No, not base density, just when it's.
The Lowe's family is set up, is that each development area will come in for its own improvements. And if they've got property out there, it's only R120, and they want to do an R112 subdivision, they have to go through zone change.
So.
Now, I thought that's the way this one was too, but the attorney said that's not.
So this is just for the MPDO, that's not for a PDO, we're talking MPDO. So in the case that we're talking about, that would mitigate this other deal is that if you can't do an MPDO if it's not zoned in that R112 or R120, right? So the whole property in the MPDO when it's signed in, it's going to go to R120. Then, right? So the plat that we're talking about. So let's just talk about that plat. Is that it would be R112 against R120, but the zoning would be incorrect. So that we can't even approve that because the zoning is incorrect. That's an MPDO. Don't get the two confused. PDO is different.
The legal opinion came in on this particular one.
On walls?
No, where you switched over to wall. Okay.
Yeah, let's talk about the wall. So
there is no agreement.
Needing that because it would have to be zoned R120 and then they would have to come in here for a zone change.
It's currently zoned R120.
It would have to occur, yeah, and then it would have to come in for a zone change to make the
Depending upon how the development agreement is written. Yeah.
I guess if you wanted to lay that whole MPDO out like you have, I think you could do it all in 1.3.
If the verbiage was right, if he did a zone change, if he did a zone change on the R112 to the R112 at the same time. But see, that's where the change is gonna happen is the the property around it is gonna have a hard time supporting the R112 for, you know, the public and everything that goes with that, but
Well, no.
I guess is my point making sense as far as if you're gonna do an MPDO, we don't need to worry about that because it's gonna be based, it's gonna have when the MPDO is signed, the whole property goes to R120 at that time, right?
If this goes through, yes, because we put it in ordinance that it has to be come in at R120.
Even the previous one will go through as R120, if I'm not mistaken.
No, it'll go through at what
Based density.
the agreement,
The low MPDO first came through at R112.
Right.
Rejected. Kicked
Right.
back. But by going with R120 and massaging the numbers, they ended up with one.
Right.
Yeah.
Agreed, but there again, the discussion when we did this whole thing was trying to, so we're always on an MPDO doing apples to apples. It's all gonna start with the same base, and that'll go from there, which is where your densities come in. I'm trying to get down to, and I've tried looking at MPDOs across the country, and they go anywhere from the base, the minimum acreage is 1 acre to the minimum acreage is 1,000 acres, depending upon what part of the country you're in. My thing is trying to get to is what is the intent, and when they put the MPDO ordinance together, what was the plan of what an MPDO is? And when you go through it and you look at the requirements for the licensed architects and the attorneys and all the other stuff in, it's looked at a master plan development, like a Sun River, or like a Daybreak. It's looking at a large thing that's got a mix of commercial, that's got a mix of residential. It's not looking at a 4-acre piece of property that's strictly residential. I don't think that was ever the intent of the MPDO, the way I read it. So I'm trying to get, okay, your PDO, you've already got your subdivision ordinances in there for simple, conventional, and phased. Then you've got the PDO under 15B, and you've got the MPDO under 15C. To me, the PDO would be great if you've got a piece of property, the property is so weird that a typical conventional subdivision won't work on it. Whether it's geographical issues, whatever that issue, where the PDO will give you flexibility to do odd things in that area. Different size lots, different things to be able to build on that property. The MPDO to me is an extremely large project that is mixed use, everything. And it has to be.
I'm trying to kind of stay on just the MPDO for now, because, and this, so what I'm trying to get to is that if we do a base density on an MPDO, right, and we're talking about our revision here, that we're gonna try to make a motion.
Do it R120, right?
So if we put that forth and they do that, it's gonna change the zone to R120, then they're gonna have to come back and do a zone change. So in the case of the Wall MPDO submission, it doesn't meet the criteria for the R120 because it needs a zone change prior to that happening. So therefore, you would have the influence on the zone change.
No,
so how that worked out to R112.
That one already is zoned to R120. He came in to change it to R112. Had the public hearing
what
and
I'm
got
saying
shut
with
down.
this sentence here that you want to switch in the thing is that he would have to come in here for a zone change before we would.
No, that's not what I'm trying to say. What I'm trying to say is if you've got an existing home built, you got an existing subdivision built that's got homes on it that are R120.
Yeah, same thing. Right. So as it works out to R112, it would have to come here for a zone change from an R120 to whatever.
Depending upon how the development agreement is written.
The MPDO.
Right.
Is there a
like what we're facing right now with the one that we were just, with the SR, the one we were just talking to, he does not need to come in here and do his own change. He's base zoned R120. He can do R112. He can do multifamily.
We're just talking about MPDO.
Well, this one, I think I'm still can't decide because it talks about PDO and MPDO both in their agreement. So it's a bit odd anyway. I'm viewing it as PDO because it mainly talks about PDO, right? I think it talks MPDO once. But the attorneys, I think you can treat it as you're kind of talking about the same thing. If that agreement was written the way it is, and it just had an M in front of the PDO in front of it, the legal opinion would still come out that they don't need to come in for his own change. as long as they don't exceed their ERUs.
Think about just when we were talking about tonight, there were no density bonuses involved in that.
Right.
There's straight zoning and
That's why I'm kind of throwing that in the PDO category rather than the MPDO. And because there is no discussion at all of density bonuses in that agreement. So, and it calls out PDO specifically several times through that agreement. So I'm kind of throwing that under 15B. That's just me throwing it over there.
What I'm trying to do is eliminate the PDO right now.
Because
we're only talking about MPDO, and the only two we have in comparison is.
My discussion item, the next discussion item is the PDO.
We gotta get through the.
Okay, the MPDO, the two things
We
that.
gotta get through
I
business
know.
item 11 before we can.
All right, here would be my recommendation, is that we put some type of language in here, if they're, rather than saying that existing zone, say existing residences. Mike, would that answer your concern? If there's existing residences that are zoned R120, or you cannot go more dense than the existing. Okay. You see where I'm trying to go with this, right? They have so much freedom in an MPDO that I think we need to kind of protect the property owners that are already there. And at least make them put a bit of a buffer in before they transition to smaller lots, or mixed family, or apartment buildings, or whatever.
I don't see really an issue with it if you don't, but I do think that the zoning, as we were saying before, the R120 zoning will make them come back for a zone change.
No, and the problem I have, and Mayor, I'm going to treat you as mayor here. The problem I have is when they're doing the development agreements, the planning commission has no vision of them. We have no input, we have no comment. We don't say, we can't bring anything up like this.
Hold on. So don't talk about the development agreement or anything. When you sign the MPDO, what Mike's telling us is it's gonna zone that whole property R120, period. And before they can do anything else to switch it, it's gonna come here for a zone change regardless. That doesn't give them the opportunity of a PDO. Don't confuse them. So that's what we got to eliminate, is we're only talking about two. So in the development agreement, the city may be able to do some stuff like that. But as far as the zoning goes, it's going to all be R120, correct? And then before they can change that R120, they're going to have to present a preliminary plat for zone A, B, or C. And then we'll start working through the zone changes.
Okay, Mike, you tell me if it's written the same way in a development agreement that this current one we were talking about tonight is written, they will not have to do that, correct?
It probably can't be written in that fashion in the MPDO.
I'm sure it can. Sure it can. The MPDO is the ordinance in place. The development agreement is a agreement between the city and the developer.
The MPDO is it's just like the blanket. This is our future.
No, but if you don't have something in the ordinance stating that they will have to come in for a zone change, they don't have to come in for a zone change. If they say in the development agreement that they can do that, as long as they can do their changes within the MPDO without, as long as they don't exceed their ERUs, which is what this development agreement says, and don't say PDO because there was no back then they would not have to come in and do a zone. It would not have to be a zone change. It would be the same thing as here as you're doing a plat approval.
What's your take on it? You go both ways?
is how the development agreement is structured.
Right.
I feel very secure in the whole agreement, that every time they want to do a development area, they have to come in if they want everything on one. They have to come in and get that.
Let me ask you this, Mike. When I read this development agreement, I thought that also on this one that we were talking about tonight. Did you not? Until the attorney came out and said, no, that's not the way it is. I'm saying that I'm trying to protect in the MPDO and oversight in the development agreement. All I'm trying to do is protect the property owners that are already there and trying to get it structured so the development agreement can't be in conflict with current ordinance. It can't. But if it's not called out specifically in the current ordinance, then the development agreement is going to take precedence. If you don't specify it in ordinance, we have no teeth. We can have an opinion, as much of an opinion as you want.
Well, there's a lot of case law too, that deal with the trials and tribulations. That's why I don't 100% agree with the interpretation of
The attorney on this one, I'm not either, but that's moot.
I'm not an expert at this, but I did agonize for months over the role at PDO. Sorry. I think, I know myself, and I think the entire city council at that time that we went through that was under the impression that we wouldn't be changing within that MPDO. As long as they stuck to the total number of rooftops,
No.
that they were allowed, then we wouldn't have to change them.
No,
That's just the way it was.
when you fill out your zone map, the city zone map, you're going to have to show what the zone ended up. Whether it was R112, whether it's R120.
our MPDO Act ordinance actually says that after the conception was approved, that each phase of development will go through preliminary and final approval.
Right. Okay.
Zone change also.
Is there a conceptual on the property?
On what?
Is there a conceptual?
Yeah, you want to see it?
That's right.
Well, I'm
Yeah,
just asking yes or no. Was there conceptual?
Yeah, but it's, to me, in my opinion.
But it's not a PDO either. I guess it's a PDO, whatever it is.
It's whatever was in section 16 in 2007 that somebody agreed to. And we can interpret it, if you do away with PDO, it's an MPDO, because that's your only ordinance that would be the ordinance covering it. I don't think we can get rid of the PDO, because I think this one's written under PDO, to be quite honest with you. So my thing is, the PDO that we currently have under B is essentially an introduction with nothing after that. So I put together something after that.
Does the PDO allow for clustering?
They all do.
Allows them to do whatever they want.
They all do, and the general plan does. They all do. The thing is, the PDO doesn't allow density bonus. At least the way I've written it, it won't. And it doesn't require some of the requirements that an MPDO does. And it's all the licensed staff, the attorney on staff, all the other stuff that comes with that. The transportation plans, the other things. So I wasn't here in 2007 when that, whatever section 16 was, that it references in this, because it's changed since then. All I'm doing right now is, because we're having a fireside sale on MPDOs and everybody's submitting them, I want to get something in there that's saying, this is what you have to do. It's got to be at least this amount of property for you to come in under an MPDO, because I'm not going to give you any bonus densities on 20 acres. So you've got to at least be, in my opinion, 200 acres to come in under an MPDO. If you're less than that, come in under a PDO. And if there's nothing unique about it, get back over in the conventional subdivision where you belong. That's all I'm saying. Each one is like a step up. Go simple, conventional, phased, PDO, MPDO.
I agree with that.
Each one gets bigger and more complicated.
It should be a higher number for an MPDO, because no one's,
So I'm just trying to put some rationale behind how we're laying them out.
I like what you're saying. I think you're right. I think before we put those acres numbers on there, we need to do some research and make sure that, 200 acres is not an acre.
Well, but when you're talking an MPDO, like a master plan development,
I'm talking about, yeah.
it's
That's a lot of acres.
it's got to be a lot of acreage, or else it really doesn't take a master plan to do it. You're doing a subdivision.
100 acres is a lot of acres.
I'm
Right
trying,
now, is there any acreage specified?
5. I'm trying to get to the point, and that's where I was looking at them across the city. You go to some of the small towns up in northern Utah, and it's 1 acre. You go to other areas, it's 600 acres. You go to other areas, the minimum's 1,000 acres for MPDO. So I'm trying to find a happy medium of, when we did an MPDO, what was the intent? A master plan development, to me, is a big deal. It's where you're mixing commercial and residential and, clustering and everything else, and it's a big acreage plot. If you don't need The MPDO, that's where PDO comes in, where you've got unique property that can't be done in a conventional subdivision because it's got some unique problem with it. And you need a bit of flexibility to be able to utilize the land. So that's where I'm trying to get from the simple subdivision, conventional subdivision, phase subdivision, PDO, MPDO. Each one's got to get a little bit bigger and a little bit more complicated. That's just my rationale. So that's where I was trying to get to an MPDO. I'm saying 200 acres. The ones out here are much larger than 200 acres that we're facing right now. And how small can you go and still need a master plan development? How small of acreage can you go where you're going to be playing with commercial and a bunch of different types of properties? 100 acres, maybe. Less than that, I don't think so. I'm like I say, I've sat and tried to research it, but there is so much variance in it. We've got to make our own decision in Tokerville of what is an MPDO. And to me, it's if you're going to require them to have all these professional licensed staff, you're already telling them it's a big deal, or else you wouldn't be doing this in the first place.
With an MPDO of 10 acres, could they technically put an acre house, 5 properties, 5 acres, and then put a multifamily
yes
next to each other? And that's what we're trying to avoid is too small of an umbrella.
I'm trying to say if it's just a normal subdivision, just do it under a normal subdivision. If you're just trying to get away from having to do a zone change because you want to do 2 different types of zones on your property, then come on, just file for the zone change.
Well, if there's a legitimate need, there's options in here for less than whatever our prescribed amount is that would.
Well, and that's
necessitate an MPDO.
That's where I suggest you leave the PDO at 5 acres and you take the MPDO to 5 to 200 acres.
So it sounds to me like you're gonna have to do a zone change in the MPDO.
Technically, no, depending upon how you guys do the agreement.
According to him,
But our ordinance says you have to get every phase approved.
so an MPDO is
I-
not, this one that we're talking about right now, is gonna have to come through the zone change. I don't know.
No, it doesn't. The legal opinion is no, it doesn't.
No, that's just a PDO, just for that.
It's PDO because there was no MPDO back then.
Just
It's
for
just,
that one development agreement. So what there's, what
what,
I think the consensus is on the MPDO is when it comes in, it's coming in under the new regulations, and so it's gonna fall
okay,
under.
then we need to write it in the MPDO ordinance that if you are doing a different zone than R120, it has to go through the normal zone change.
Isn't it already in there?
No, it's not.
Yes, it is.
You think it is in the current MPDO ordinance?
Through the approval of phases. Each phase
Okay,
of
yeah.
construction.
Okay, Mike, read it to me. Okay, getting back to the 2 changes I was trying to put in there, because I think they're pretty solid on the other one, but, because what we're talking about right now, I wasn't even talking about, but. So I guess my question is, and the only one I was trying to bring up on the MPDO was, do we want to increase the minimum acreage? Because currently it's 5, and I don't think you do an MPDO on 5 acres.
I think it should be increased, but I don't know if 200 is the number. I think
I threw a starting point out.
like a 50 or.
I think 50 is still too small.
I mean, I don't, because truthfully, like if we're gonna look at both of them, I'd like to just have there was some verbiage in the hillside ordinance that basically allowed people to ascend or rescind or whatever you want to call the verbiage to move units of over like 20 degrees slope or over 30 degree slopes. They could transfer them densities down to places that was buildable and stuff like that. So I think in our area, the only thing we're going to run into is terrain, right? I mean, what would the other special circumstances be that we don't that you're thinking of?
I'm trying to leave it open on the PDO that they can do. That just makes allowance. I'm not trying to specify what the issue is that's causing the problem. I'm just trying to say that there's an issue that you go with a PDO because you can't do the work under a conventional or a simple subdivision. Give them the PDO option for those smaller areas that have got unique problems. And that's why you leave the PDO ordinance in there at 5 acres and let them come in and tell you what the problems are.
See, my thing is so it's, for me on an MPDO, I want to see, I don't care if it's 50 acres or 10 acres, I'd love to see what the whole design's going to look like. And on a PDO, currently we don't have that outlook. We don't have any, they can just come in just like this plot plan that we saw today.
Well,
we don't know the next phase, and we don't know anything.
Well, when we get off the MPDO part, I did a draft of a PDO. So I'm just trying to get through these couple issues on the MPDO first before we jump over to that one. And my issue again on that
Some of
was,
these changes will affect that discussion too, though. So
well, it's the PDO part?
the acreage, and if you want to try to pump the acreage change.
Well, I'm saying that we could actually go, because with what we have done on the red line version that's existing there, with the recommendation of a couple extra items that the city council should review, and if they want to add to it.
That's what I'm saying.
And the reason these came about, again, was in the discussions in the staff meetings with the MPDOs that came in with what came back from the attorney. And just trying to kind of nip some of this. If we're doing a revising it, let's kind of nip the things as we.
Yeah, and if we do that, if we do some of them recommendations or them changes that I'm looking at here on the 200, or, so that would be in consensus what we decide to do with the PDO. If we're going to change that acreage, I think it's probably.
My recommendation on the PDO was leaving it at 5.
I know, but on the MPDO change,
yeah,
it would have everything to do with what we did on the PDO in the discussion. So it's kind of why I brought that up. But we shouldn't.
There shall be a 3-stage
Right.
review process.
Yep.
For all MPDO.
Okay.
Consisting of conceptual, complex, and approval, preliminary site plan approval.
Yep. Okay, I'm good with that. Okay, tell me why, if it comes in as a base 120, why I can't just change it to 112? Tell me why I can't just come in with 112 as long as I don't exceed my ERUs? What in that? Yeah, I'm great that we're reviewing it. What's telling me I have to go through a formal zone change, typical zone change?
You want a plat in our 112 subdivision.
Okay.
You have to have the correct zoning.
All right. Okay, you got final site plan approval.
One thing that we need to do tonight is we need to decide whether we're gonna back up and do some more work on this ordinance, because if we do, it's gonna require another public hearing. Or whether we're going to take what we have now and send it to the city council.
Well, I'd say we take what we have now and send it to the city council, but I still have those 3 areas of concern that we're going to want to address later.
Can we make a motion to address any of them concerns without the public motion? We can't. Okay.
Yeah, if you're gonna change the acreage and those kind of things. you
Okay.
need to go through the public hearing process.
Then my suggestion would be we send what we have through, because we've been working on this for 6 months and finally got it to a place where we all agreed.
6 months, that was it?
Okay, I've been writing this silly thing for that long. Okay, no. To me, I still have those 3 outstanding issues that I think we need to address, but I would like to get this before the city council.
That's easy. Then I'll make a recommendation to approve item F11. Recommend approval to the city council.
Do we have a second?
I'll second that.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, it passes and move forward to the city council. All right, discussion items. Hey, we've cleaned this thing up as much as we can. Go do your job. You guys are paid, we're not. Don't be complaining to me. We don't even get a shirt. I mean, come on, really? You guys get shirts, you get paid, listen to all this. Huh? Give me a shirt? Oh yeah, you think I'm tough to deal with now? Give me a shirt. All right. Okay. Huh? No, I don't want anybody to know who I am. Why do you think I'm wearing this mask tonight? All right. Can you pull up the discussion item on the plan on the PDO. If you go with, no, that's the MPDO. In the discussion items, there's another one that's, yep, right there. Currently, the only thing that's in our PDO ordinance is that initial paragraph that essentially tells you this is kind of what we like, but doesn't give you any definition of what it is. So what I'd like to do, have you do is, and I don't know if anybody has had a chance to review this, it's been in the file for a bit.
I read through this pretty good too.
But what I would like to do is have everybody go through this. I've done the initial draft on it, chop it up with whatever you think, agree, disagree, what's missing out of it or what's too much in it. I have essentially taken a big chunk of it out of the MPDO prior to getting to the density bonuses. And putting in, again, the same thing of this is for something that does not fit under our current simple subdivision, conventional subdivision, and phase subdivision, that there has to be something unique that brings you into the PDO simply because it gives you so much flexibility in the MPDO that you don't, in the PDO, that you don't have in a conventional subdivision. So there's got to be something unique that why you're coming in for a PDO. But it also drops off all the licensed staff and everything that's required under the MPDO. It's essentially cutting a bunch of the costs out of the MPDO that are there because the MPDO is such a big thing, which is why you required all the licensed staff and all the transportation studies and everything else. And for this, it's one where it doesn't really fit in our subdivision ordinance, but it doesn't rise to the level of an MPDO. So essentially what I'd like to do is have you all go through it and come prepared in the next meeting to hash it out and put an ordinance forward to the city council. Or actually, it would be one that we can schedule a public hearing on at the meeting after that. So that's my thoughts.
So if we back up a little bit and let's just talk about like the MPDO and the PDO in the future. And simple subdivisions and large subdivisions and all that.
Right.
Is there anything in that, I haven't done any review of the subdivision, like the actual, like let's say a larger subdivision. Is there anything in there that would cover density transfer at all, or like anything to do with hillside or open space or nothing?
Not in the simple conventional phase subdivision.
Right. And that's where that's what I would suggest that you kind of pull into this.
Yeah, so that's what I'm saying. It's like, you know, if we take, let's just say just an imaginary number and say 50 acres, you know, let's say 50 acres and above is going to be an MPDO, 50 acres below is going to be a PDO. I don't know if it's really like, I don't know if it's really fair because let's say someone even wants to do an MPDO on 50 acres and they're still eating the cost of, I guess that's their own decision also.
Yeah, I personally on 50 acres wouldn't do an MPDO because it's got too many cost drivers in it.
Yeah.
So that's just my opinion.
So that kind of brings up the point is like, you know, if you're going to do 50 acres, then do a phase subdivision and stick with your zoning that you want. And then, you know, people that actually want to spend the money get the bonuses. You know, so if you're taking that.
Well, that's the.
Possible if somebody owns 50 acres on the hillside. And if you disallow him the ability to do an MPDO, you might say, well, why?
Well, Mike, and that's where I'm trying to get to with the PDO rather than the MPDO, is if it's unique terrain where a simple subdivision or conventional is going to prevent him from being able to do it.
Did you take density bonuses in?
No, I did not.
Okay, see, and that's a big part of the hillside.
That's the only reason.
The hillside construction is, if you've got property you can't build on, then you want to leave it as dedicated as open space, you should be entitled to density bonuses.
Well, and that's in the hillside, correct? Already.
Be honest with you.
It's not in the hillside right now.
ordinance for the long-
I thought you were saying on the hillside that they could shift it down to the
It used to be. It's not there right now.
So if you're gonna 50 acres of hillside property, but you've got 20 acres of that, that's buildable.
I I don't have a problem with them being able to realign the things, okay? My problem is, am I gonna give you extra for something? And that's to where I'm viewing the density bonus. In a PDO, I don't want to give you extras because it can be 5 acres or something. If you want a bunch of extra bonuses so you can go more consolidated, then you need to be able to give the city something as an incentive to get those bonuses.
Which an MPDO does, so why don't
Right.
we just stick with an MPDO period? Because if you look at a real, like, let's say a 50-acre parcel, you're gonna inquire then cost no matter what, whether it's an MPDO or not, you're still gonna have a designer, you're still gonna have a traffic, you're still gonna have to meet all them.
You're still gonna have to have an attorney, you're still gonna, no, actually, you're not.
Well, I mean, you don't legally bound to it by the thing,
But you're required under an
You're gonna
MPDO.
use them, you're gonna do that
Well,
right.
I'm just saying it's required under an MPDO, and I don't want to get rid of the PDO because we currently have one coming before us that's a PDO. So,
Can I finish my question?
oh, weren't you done?
No.
Okay, go ahead. Go ahead.
Let me get back to my hillside.
All right, I'm with you.
So you got 20 acres down here
Yep.
toward the foot of the hill that's actually
Yep.
buildable. It's got 30 acres of business. Under R120, I've got 100 houses, 100 rooftops on that.
Right.
50 acres. So do I put all those in the 20 acres now? With a PDO?
Well, PDO doesn't, right now, I don't think I put in, it's required to come in as R120.
Well,
The MPDO has to come in as R120.
Whatever my density.
Right.
Do I
Just
put all
calculated on.
20 acres that's actually buildable with a PDO?
Well, and that's one, if you've got to go through the zone change or not. That's what we're trying to get
Well,
to.
the zone change would be R120,
No, the underlying zone is R120
not according to our attorney.
on this current one.
Yeah.
No, he's saying the underlying zone is R120. That is what he's saying. He's saying that they don't have to go through a formal zone change as we do normally to go to R112. Your base zone that you did the ERUs under is the R120.
My zone is R120 in this hillside.
Right, but you can come, but under the development agreement that we're talking about tonight, he doesn't have to come in for a formal zone change. He just comes in for a
So what
plat.
I'm saying is that I can then build all 100 homes in 20 acres at the bottom of the hill.
Technically, the way he's done it.
Okay.
The way this one sits, yes,
So now-
which I don't particularly agree with, but that's where I'm trying to get away from that.
Well, it sounds like that's where you're going with it. Not trying to get away from it. Are you establishing clustering in a PDO?
Well, and that's why I want these guys to go through it. So,
I just wanted to bring that up to see where you were at.
well, and I'm still, the general plan encourages clustering, but I think you need to get your zone to do that clustering. And that's kind of my issue if you're doing it on a small tract of land, is being able to, and that's kind of what we were looking at on that 40 acres is, he's got what, a 6-acre piece sitting there? And then he's gone and done multifamily on 1/4-acre lots and some other R120 lots. And I'm going, okay, number one, he didn't have a street into the one, which was a problem, but why is that not just a simple subdivision to come in for a zone change? There's nothing unique about this property. Why is it even coming in as an MPDO? And I have nothing telling him he can't come in as an MPDO. But he's coming in trying to bypass having to go through a formal zone change and just be able to do it on the plat. And we approved the plat. I know that, so he's coming in as an MPDO, which I'm trying to say, no, you can't bypass the zone changes by simply saying it's now an MPDO.
Well, that's kind of where this MPDO would get caught up in, because it doesn't fit. He'd have to do the zone change, like he can't, the plat that he brought forward, it would not fit under the MPDO because he would have to do the zone change.
Sure it would, depend on how the development agreement's written.
That was an MPDO.
Yes.
No, we're back to the same one.
No, we're back to the same argument that I'm trying to make it so they can't do that.
Yeah.
It's got to be, for us to deal with it, it's got to be in the ordinance to hold, so the development agreement can't go against the ordinance.
No, and it goes beyond us. This is time honored, it's backed by years and years and years of wisdom and years and years and years of legal experience. This is a state law that prescribes our zoning process.
Right.
And I personally am not fond of development agreements that tend to vacate or bypass that process.
Agreed.
So if we back up
And that
to,
process was set up to protect the public. It's not set up to protect the developer.
And my whole goal of this is trying to protect the existing systems, the existing citizens who have homes that are built. And try and make it so an MPDO cannot come in and stick an apartment complex next to a residential zone. We can't, because right now, if all I'm going by on this one we're dealing with is they can put in, as long as they don't go above their ERUs, there's no protection for the citizens now.
in the wall plat, let's just say, or the MPDO. So he actually was bringing a plat in and an MPDO. So
There's not a development agreement done.
Okay, hold on. So,
Right.
So if you bring this in and we approve an MPDO, it doesn't mean that he gets to do R112. He still has to come in and do the R112 zone change, correct? Because really he's just doing a future, it's a preliminary plan,
I
right?
could see him sitting down and doing the conceptual, the preliminary, and the final, all in one, just as he does it.
Right.
If he'd done that, then there'd be hearings on all of that, and the public would get a chance to voice their
So we could,
comments. But
theoretically, we could approve that MPDO and not approve the plot because it doesn't fit the zoning.
Well, the first thing that he's got to have,
a zone change.
he's got to, before he even gets to that, he's got to get a development agreement done. So again, and I'm gonna go back to the same thing that I'm harping on is, and the only one, this is our first one that's come before us, okay? So this one we're cutting our teeth on, and it may not be the best one to cut our teeth on. For the simple reason is because of the legal thing that came out stating that they don't have to do a zone change. Right. Well, PDO, MPDO, it depends upon what you want to, what part of that agreement you read. And all I'm doing is, I think it's up to us, if there's nothing protecting the citizens of this community from a developer coming in and putting something right next to them, like on this plat, and a conceptual plat, that's great. It's great. You got a couple things written. You got a thing that says commercial, you got a thing that says church, and you got one small residential thing, and that's it. I kind of picture a conceptual plan a little bit more than that. When I was expecting something a bit laid out of where more residential and stuff is. So I'm looking at raw land in different zones and phases they're gonna do.
That's what an MPDO does.
Well, that's their conceptual, and they have to stay within their conceptual. No, this is the PDO.
I know. But
They have to, they cannot vary extremely from their conceptual. Okay, they can make little changes and variances, but this conceptual is telling me nothing, to be quite honest with you. It's, yeah, there's the land they're gonna build on.
Well, actually, though, if you get technical with this conceptual, where they're showing, where they're wanting 40 the acre, tonight, they're wanting 40 the acre.
Right.
It's only showing 2 to 3.
Right.
So,
But we're gonna go with the attorney's letter again, Mike, which you and I both disagree with. So if it's not in ordinance, there's nothing I can do about it. And I'm trying to make it so if the development agreement's done, the citizens are still protected no matter what. That's all I'm trying to do. Because you tell the citizens that you're doing a plat, if you tell the citizens that you're going in for an MPDO plat review, they take that differently. The normal citizen, at least my wife does, takes it different than you're coming in for a zone change. The minute you say zone change in this community, everybody's ears perk up. Argue that with me. The minute you say a plat review, yeah. And to me, if you go on MPDO and you can come in and just say, we're doing a plat approval, nobody's ears are perking up. Well, Anita's ears are perking up because she knows what that is. But the general public is not. So to me, it's a good way for a developer to get something past the public that they don't know is there.
well, I guess, they still require public hearings. And that's
Agreed.
That's probably the trigger that people should be.
Well, they should be. So anytime we're doing a plat review, we should put the word zone in it to get the public looking at it. All I'm just trying, like I say, trying to do what I think is in the best interests of the citizens to try and protect them. So, go ahead.
Just to kind of maybe help move it forward.
I can't wait to hear you guys' debate on this. Go ahead.
And I think we have an issue with our city attorney, because he also represents some of who is submitting the plat that he just gave the opinion on.
Yeah, I think someone brought that up.
I think we need to get a second attorney's opinion on that whole issue and make sure that we're covered, because there's a definite conflict of interest.
Well, and I think, and there's a difference between a 1,200 attorney law firm and a 30 attorney law firm. Even if you say you're separating it into 30 attorney, every attorney knows what the other attorney's doing. You do it in a 1,200 attorney law firm, they don't know what the crap one side's doing when the other one does. But when we have the same attorney firm representing both parties, that's worse, but I'm narrowing it down to just the same firm representing both sides.
Where the attorney is the lead partner, I don't think we can do that. I think we need to go to another.
Well, I totally agree with you, but that's,
I'm not so sure we don't need to get other representation for this entire project.
well, I think you should take that to the attention of the mayor, because I think that's correct. Okay. Like I say, and Mayor, I brought my conflict concerns up here before, but, so I agree. Mike and I were both in disagreement with the opinion, but that's.
Well, I can see that too. We need to find out. We need to get an opinion on this.
Got 30 days.
Because we're the ones holding the line here.
Yeah.
I think it's lots of oxygen to have this mask on.
All right, we've emptied the room out, so let's go ahead and do that, and that was my big thing with the public hearing with that many people and the state regulations. Yeah. But I think we've moved the MPDO over to you guys now, so you get to do that. I still think we need to address a couple things on it, so far as the size and trying to protect the zones. I try and hold my tongue, as you know, but I tend to not to, so.
Dan will be at the city council meeting to discuss these changes.
Right.
And then if the planning commission comes back and addresses the other concerns, then that will constitute another public hearing.
Right, but I have, as a citizen in the city council meetings, I have raised my concerns about other things also. So I have my planning chair talk, and then I get up as my citizen talk and give my concerns too. I'll take it off when I step up to the microphone, and that'll scare the crap out of everybody. All right. Okay, we've covered the discussion items on the PDO, which I would like you all to go through and review and come back with your additions, subtractions, or just tell me we should get rid of the whole thing. The next thing is I am looking for a volunteer to go through our sign regulation and compare it, quit laughing, and compare that thing that is longer than the felony statute in the state of Utah and try and zone that thing.
Ask the colonel how you go about asking for that.
I'm asking for a volunteer for someone to go through that and also compare it to the commercial design standards and make sure we're all kind of getting the same idea, because the commercial design standards kind of emphasize the monument signs above some of them. And I think some of them call out, some of the cities, if you look at them, there are no big overhead signs other than gas stations and cinemas. So I think, I don't want our streets to come down looking like some of the streets in some of these other cities that essentially looks like everybody's having a yard sale.
I would be very inadequate.
Well, okay, we've got one taking himself out of it. Which one of the?
I wouldn't mind if I was actually helpful, but I don't know now. Now, if there was another city that we liked, we could just go and take a look and say, hey,
I'm gonna be quite honest with you. Anytime you look at our ordinances, you should be looking at several other cities and see how they compare. So was that a volunteer that you did?
No, terrible. Jason, it's a great.
I'm telling you what, I volunteered
It's a
for the
great-
commercial design.
it's a
I
great
volunteered for a bunch of them, and the nice thing about being chair is I'm not volunteering for this
It
one.
would be a shoddy, I would miss holes I wouldn't even know I was supposed to see.
It's a great way to start.
Okay, do we have any other retired people on this panel that would mind going through? Is really nobody gonna step up and volunteer, really? Really?
Gary's not gonna do it.
Gary, why don't you get here?
I'm not gonna sign them when they're
Can't
not
stay
here.
awake long enough to read my emails. How am I gonna read his signs?
But Ruth wouldn't even let you into the files. That was bad. Who has not done one yet?
I haven't.
Animal, Hillside, several. I got two other people haven't done one yet. Go ahead, rock, paper, scissors.
Oh, man.
I'm good with whoever wins.
2 out of 3, Gary, ready?
No, it's
2 out of-
one.
I just said 2 out of 3.
I'm chairman, it's one. Do one.
All right,
One, 1, 2,
Rock,
3.
paper, scissors. You do rock, ready? Rock, paper, scissors.
You guys have no
You don't
timing.
do it. You do 1, 2, 3, go. Ready? 1, 2, 3, go. Oh.
Okay, welcome to doing the sign ordinance.
I'm glad. I'm glad for you.
Okay, that actually takes care of all of our issues unless somebody has something else. I'll entertain the motion.
It's only 9 o'clock. After
Oh
9.
crap, I forgot to take my 8 o'clock
But
medicine.
adjourn.
Okay,
I'll
do we have a
second the
second?
motion.
Any opposed? All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, we're adjourned. Thank you very much. What time?
6.
We have adjourned at 9:04 PM.
9:55.
I appreciate it, guys. and I really do appreciate last month's, what you guys got put through, so. I was sitting at home watching it on YouTube just a cussing. Hey, Mike,
Comments from you on.
You gonna?
they're right